Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Get the lottery system at the beginning of the game. Chapter 61. New York City, in Times Square. Obadiah's eyes were full of despair, thinking that the Iron Overlord Legion he had created with great difficulty had been wiped out so easily, which made him very unwilling and felt helpless. Seeing this guy with a look of lovelessness, Tang Tian walked over slowly, stared at the conspirator expressionlessly, and spoke directly. You know that your war machine will cause serious damage to New York. Do you want the whole New York City to be buried? Tang Tian asked unhurriedly. Looking at the ruined neighborhood around him, he couldn't help but kill this guy directly. Ha ha ha, this is natural. You don't let me live, and I won't let you live. So what if a few blocks are destroyed? I don't care at all. Obadiah's attitude is still arrogant. Even though he has lost his combat effectiveness, he still looks at Tang Tian provocatively. It seems that you are hopeless, so shall I sentence you to death? Tang Tian slowly raised his hand, and a ball of electric current appeared in his palm, and a ball of iron sand on the ground gradually formed a tiny projectile, which looked very powerful. Faced with Tang Tian's actions, Obadiah didn't have any fear, but looked at them with a desperate tone, and said with a slight growl. You think you've won? Ha ha. This is just the beginning. Although I thought I would win, I also made two-handed preparations. Now that I have failed, this plan should be officially launched. Obadiah looked at them proudly, with a hint of madness in his eyes, which made Tang Tian and Tony on the side frown, thinking that this guy must have done something bad. What preparations? Tell me quickly. Otherwise, I will send you to see God immediately. Tang Tian said seriously, with a feeling of impatience. He felt that this guy should have hidden some huge secret, so he didn't kill him. It's very simple. I injected half of my funds into the Hydra organization. If something happens to me, the Hydra organization will definitely help me get revenge. As for the other half of the funds, I gave it to Tony's another enemy, and he will definitely have revenge on you. After Obadiah finished speaking these words viciously, Tang Tian couldn't listen any longer. Without even thinking about it, a projectile exploded Obadiah's head. PFF'd. With a sound, Obadiah's consciousness fell into darkness, and the former major shareholder of Stark Industries died in Tang Tian's hands, aggrieved just like that. Ding. The plot to stop Obadiah has been completed. Reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery. The host can draw a lottery at any time. Just as Tang Tian thought, just after completing the task, the system heard the sound of him being rewarded, which did not exceed his expectations. So far, Tang Tian has had 3 chances to draw a lottery, and there are only 2 times left. Tang Tian will be able to draw 5 times in a row, and maybe he will get more valuable items at that time. However, before Obadiah's death, he revealed the most important news, that is, the Hydra organization that once died out in World War II still exists now. For a moment, Captain America's expression changed, as if he had thought of something bad, so he turned his head to look at Tang Tian, as if he wanted to say something. Mr. Tang Tian, why don't you ask more questions? The Hydra organization was an evil organization during World War II. I didn't expect it to be alive now. I must also get some news from him. Captain America looked at Tang Tian suspiciously, and felt that his actions were too ruthless and decisive, which far exceeded his expectations. Some information he originally wanted to ask could not be obtained. It's useless, Obadiah, that guy has already made up his mind to die. So what you asked is just superfluous. It's better to find a way to let S.H.I.E.L.D. investigate it, which is the best choice, isn't it? Tang Tian shook his head, and explained casually. In his opinion, it was also a correct way. Okay then, I'll go back first and report this matter to S.H.I.E.L.D., and someone will deal with it later. Captain America nodded, and finally decided to leave. As Tang Tian said, Obadiah probably wouldn't say much, so asking S.H.I.E.L.D. to investigate is the only way. Immediately afterwards, after Captain America left, Spider-Man also said hello, and quickly disappeared into the night, leaving only Tang Tian and Tony in place. Oh, I really didn't expect this guy Obadiah to be a devil. If it weren't for my brother, you stopped me, I might not know what kind of hell New York City would become. Tony looked rejoiced, but felt that he recognized a good brother who helped him deal with these troubles. You're welcome, then this matter will be left to you in the future. I believe that with your ability, you should be able to settle this matter. Tang Tian waved his hand, Obviously he didn't want to take care of this matter anymore, he wanted to give this matter to Tony Stark, and let him complete the finishing task. Don't worry, this is my duty, and I will definitely do it well. Tony smiled heartily, and Tang Tian also bid farewell to him, quickly disappeared in place, returned to his villa, and began to rest. 2 days later, Tang Tian naturally received Tony's invitation, and came to Tony Stark's seaside villa. As soon as he arrived here, Tang Tian found Tony Stark, put down the newspaper in his hand, turned his head, and stared at him with a bitter expression. Brother, you can be regarded as coming, and the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. It's really hard to deal with. Is it really okay for you to be alone? Haha, what does it matter? The matter is not pushed to the factory explosion. Is there any problem that is difficult to deal with? Tang Tian smiled casually, picked up a glass of red wine, and savored it carefully. Oh, it's so easy. You forgot that there were so many witnesses that day, and it was almost spread all over the internet, so I have to attend the press conference an hour later. Tony looked helpless. There were still a lot of things he wanted to do, which was also necessary, a way to deal with it. It's nothing, then I'll go with you. Also, what do you think of the name Iron Man? Tang Tian picked up the newspaper, pointed to the 3 words, Iron Man, on it, and asked Tony meaningfully. It's not bad, it sounds easy to pronounce. But the steel armor is completely made of gold titanium alloy. It's not a bad name, I like it very much. Tony Stark was quite happy, and he naturally accepted the title of hero given to him by the public. Very well, then Tony, you should prepare carefully. Let's attend the press conference together. Tang Tian wasn't surprised at all. Anyway, in this press conference, Tony will tell the fact that he is Iron Man, so he is not surprised at all. After dealing with this problem, Tang Tian felt that the most important thing was to use the world experience card instead. Traveling to other worlds like this is definitely a very good idea. At night, at 8 o'clock, the scene of the press conference in New York City. Pepper Potts helped Tony carefully, and straightened his tie. His eyes were full of warmth and a little bit of admiration, which constantly emerged. Suddenly, Coulson on the side came over, took out a speech and handed it to Tony. His eyes were full of seriousness, he criticized the speech above, and began to speak. This is a speech, which proves in detail that you are traveling in the Hawaiian Islands. There will be 50 witnesses who will attend directly. This time, the 2 Iron Men can be said to be a weapon test by Stark Industries. After Coulson finished explaining, Tony on the other side gave up, picked up the speech in his hand, and looked at him with some doubts in his eyes. Mr. Coulson, my brother Tang Tian, why didn't he appear in it? Tony was very surprised, looked at Tang Tian beside him, without the slightest expression on his face, and said strangely. It's very simple. It's good to involve one entrepreneur this time. If 2 entrepreneurs are involved, it will create a more unfavorable situation, and it may make us unable to end. Coulson shook his head and said the important point. Tony still showed a helpless expression, and finally showed a trace of apology to Tang Tian on the side. In short, Mr. Coulson, thank you very much this time. Without your handling, we would probably be very troublesome. Pepper Potts said with a happy face, thinking that the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. are very reliable. You're welcome, we will have opportunities to cooperate in the future. Now, Mr. Tony, please deal with this matter first. Coulson smiled slightly, and finally took another look at Tang Tian, who was on the side, before slowly leaving here and disappearing in front of the stage. After getting ready, Tony walked up to the stage without hesitation, looking at the surrounding reporters who raised their cameras, with a confident expression on his face. So, Mr. Stark, please tell me, what happened that day? In the audience, Peter Parker, a reporter from the Daily Bugle, asked first, with a very gentle and familiar tone. Spider-Man, hearing the other party's question, Tony seemed to understand it completely, hesitated for a moment, and said directly, it's a long story, of course it's a group of people, and it should be Stark Industries who fight against a group of Iron Men, arms. Unexpectedly, before Tony finished his sentence, one of the black reporters immediately interrupted. Mr. Tony, I'm really sorry, I don't think it is possible to do this kind of weapon experiment, and your words should be concealed. Quote. After being interrupted twice in a row, Tony Stark had long since lost his patience, and casually threw away the speech in his hand, which made Tang Tian, who was on the side, smile even more intensely. "Hey Tony, what are you doing?" Seeing that Tony didn't play the cards according to the routine, Pazzi quickly pointed to the speech script on the ground, motioning the dude to pick it up. "I am Iron Man." Facing the questions from many reporters, Tony smiled calmly, and all the reporters in the audience immediately became overwhelmed, desperately asking about the truth of what happened that day. Regarding this, Tang Tian smiled without saying a word, turned around and left. Anyway, he got a chance to draw a lottery this time, which can be regarded as a benefit to him. After the press conference, Tony still had a smile on his face, looking at Tang Tian in front of him with a relaxed expression, as if he wanted to chat with him. "Hey, how do you feel? Am I very handsome?" Tony said with a little fart. Instead of hiding it, it's better to admit that his status as a superhero might make the stock price of Stark Industries soar. Of course, who doesn't know in the streets and alleys now? You are Iron Man, and you stole the limelight this time. I can guarantee that the stock price of Stark Industries will double within 3 hours. Tang Tian made a divine prophecy and began to evaluate confidently. With your good words, how about going to my own private bar to have fun at night? I will entertain you with the best wine. I thank you for your help during this time. Tony extended the invitation with a serious face, obviously really wanting to have a crazy day with him. Forget it. I'm going on a trip. I guess I won't be here for a few days. I'll come back to you later. Tang Tian shook his head and rejected Tony's proposal, which also made Tony very helpless. What's the matter, brother, where do you want to go? Tony asked strangely, and didn't think he had a more fun place than a bar. Naturally, I will go to the mainland of Kyushu and travel for a while. I think there will be unexpected gains. This is also the reason why I rejected you. Tang Tian casually made up a reason, and after chatting with Tony for a while, he left this place and returned to his villa. At the same time, before the wave of Tony admitting that he was Iron Man had not faded, in a villa in New York City, Baron Zemo, the leader of the Hydra organization, came to a computer. Drive Zola, Obadiah Stane injected $1,000 billion into our organization. Do we need to find Tony Stark, that guy's trouble? Baron Zemo said softly, and just after he finished speaking, a virtual image of Dr. Zola appeared in the computer, appearing directly in front of his eyes. Not for the time being, we need a long-term plan to deal with Iron Man. Through my algorithm, I have discovered some threatening superheroes, such as Tang Tian and Stephen Strange. These guys are not easy to deal with. In the future, we will rule the world, and we can only rule out only these superheroes can truly rule the world. Dr. Zola shook his head, explained in detail the current form, and decided to hide for a while before making a reasonable decision. No problem, if necessary, my Winter Soldier will attack. We have been hidden for so long, and finally we will see the light of day again. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Baron Zemo's mouth. He has lived from World War II to the present, and through his unremitting efforts, he has finally re-emerged the Hydra organization. Even the famous shield has basically been emptied by them long ago, so they have learned a deep level of secrets, and have long had the ambition to rule the world. Okay, when we find an opportunity, it's time for our Hydra to fight back. Dr. Zola said confidently, and the image on the computer disappeared. While the Hydra organization was plotting a dangerous conspiracy, Tang Tian took out the world experience card he got from the last lottery draw and held it in his hand, thinking about whether to enter that plane world. Since now is a good time, it might still be a good idea to head out into the world, get valuable items, and get some training along the way. At night, in New York City, in a villa, Tang Tian took out a blue card from the ring, with the Predator logo on it, and the whole card also exuded mysterious energy. This is, the item obtained in the last lottery draw represents an advanced prop that can travel to other worlds, the World Experience card. Haha, it's really a good prop. I just got a little tired of staying in the Marvel world. Then go to that world. A smile appeared in Tang Tian's eyes, and he injected a little spiritual power. In an instant, the entire card turned into countless white particles, and finally formed a beam of light, leading Tang Tian to disappear into the Marvel universe. Then, the scene in front of Tang Tian changed, and he appeared in a tropical rainforest, surrounded by armored vehicles and patrolling soldiers. It was a military base at first glance. Ding. The world experience card has been successfully used. The host's identity in the current world is a member of the Dutch team. He just finished his vacation and participated in the mission. Ding. In this world, kill 3 predators and reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery. As soon as he arrived, Tang Tian received a prompt from the system, and understood his identity and mission, which had already been arranged by the system, so he walked to the base without hesitation. After entering the base, without taking a few steps, the members of Daki's team walked over with joy on their faces. Looking at Tang Tian who rushed over, their enthusiasm seemed to be very happy. Hey, Tang Tian, welcome back to the Dak team, we have a new mission. Hawkins, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, enthusiastically held Tang Tian's hand, feeling very excited. Of course, I heard that the rewards this time are very generous. So I'm here. Tang Tian said it as a matter of course, according to the world's own personality, he responded to Hawkins with a smile. Hearing Tang Tian's words, the tough guy behind Hawkins took out a box of special tobacco and quickly handed it over with enthusiasm on his face. Then, why not smoke a cigarette first to celebrate, there are some good things inside. Machine Gunner Bude was also very enthusiastic and wanted Tang Tian to smoke a cigarette. Forget it, I won't smoke this thing, I'll go first, I'll ask the captain, what is the mission this time? Tang Tian waved his hand, and without saying anything to the 2 tough guys, he walked directly to the distance, towards the direction of the headquarters. However, on the way, Tang Tian also met these plot characters, namely Billy of Indian descent, Black Mike and Ramirez, members of these 3 teams, and saluted them. Not long after, Tang Tian arrived at the headquarters smoothly, knocked on the door in front of him, stood calmly at the door, and waited quietly. Please come in. After getting the consent, Tang Tian pushed open the door and walked inside. Just as he entered, he found Colonel Dak, sitting on a chair, staring at him majestically, as if he was quite satisfied. Report to Colonel Daki, Tang Tian is here to report. Tang Tian stepped forward, made a military salute, and said neither humble nor overbearing. Very good, you really are a young man with potential. I am very optimistic about you. Colonel Daki gave Tang Tian a hug, as happy as his companion Delon, and introduced this team member in detail. Thank you. Tang Tian nodded, and stood straight to the side, quietly listening to the conversation between them. Okay, now that the team members have arrived. After an hour, the mission will officially begin. General Worf on the side explained that they wanted a mission, hesitated for a moment, and then directly issued an order to carry out the mission. Yes. After accepting the order, Colonel Daki came to Colonel Daki, briefly explained the mission, and went to the military supply department to receive the weapons needed for this mission. After entering the arsenal, Tang Tian chose M41, knife, camouflage net, and emergency medical kit without hesitation. It can be said that he was armed to the teeth. Regarding this, Tang Tian didn't think that these weapons could deal with the Predator, but he still had a guard of honor, which was the power of the kaleidoscope Sharingan. In this way, they took the helicopter from the base and followed the designated route to the mission location. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When they arrived at the mission location, the red light in the cabin suddenly flickered. The members of Dach's team looked very serious, checked their weapons, and prepared to start this mission. Guys, it's time to act. After Colonel Daki gave the order, Bude threw down the 2 ropes, and the rest of the team members grabbed the ropes and slid down. After a roll, they quietly entered the dense virgin forest. Looking at the skillful movements of these players, Tang Tian's movements were not slow, he also fell to the ground and landed in this forest. After entering the forest, Tang Tian adjusted the chakra perception ability to the maximum, and sensed the predator hidden in the jungle to avoid being attacked by this guy. Soon, when they arrived at the target location, Colonel Daki made a hand gesture. After Tang Tian understood, they formed a fan-shaped intersecting defense circle in groups of 3, and started to advance one by one. For Tang Tian, the purpose of using the experience card to come to this world this time is to obtain some alien technology, and by the way, skillfully control all the powers currently known. At this time, after walking for a while, the sound of crows came from the forest, and a faint smell of blood also reached Tang Tian's nose. In the corner, a predator squatted here quietly. The high-tech camouflage completely concealed his aura, but Tang Tian directly discovered it. I hope that guy won't make any unwise choices. Tang Tian didn't have any feeling about the hidden predator, and with his strength, there was still no problem at all for the predator. However, there may be other predator in the woods, so they must be careful, otherwise they may capsize in the gutter. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they found the crash site of the helicopter through the lock of the black box, and found the burning wreckage of the helicopter. Head, I found that we are going to find the target. Seeing the helicopter on the tree, Tang Tian reminded Colonel Daki. Then, Ramirez took out the tool, hooked the tree and climbed up at once, carefully checked the situation inside the helicopter. Head, this plane was hit by a heat-seeking weapon, and the equipment inside has disappeared. It should be the local guerrilla forces that attacked the helicopter. Ramirez began to analyze it carefully, and Colonel Dutch frowned, always feeling that things were a little strange. Dylan, why do they have thermal weapons? It's not what the information shows. Colonel Daki questioned and said that he always felt that something was different from what he thought. I don't know, maybe they have prepared too much. Dylan's eyes were erratic, and he knew he was lying at a glance, so Colonel Daki's eyes became sharper, but in the end he didn't ask any more questions. On the other hand, Tang Tian, looking at the situation in front of him, didn't say much, just stared at the predator, avoiding that thing launching a sneak attack while they were talking. In the forest, after discovering the fallen helicopter, Colonel Dak naturally sensed that something was wrong, and quickly dispatched Tang Tian and Billy to investigate the surrounding area. Not long after, they found 2 sets of footprints, as well as a lot of scattered yellow bullet casings. After finding these clues, Tang Tian began to analyze them. The footprints seemed to be people from the army. Judging by the number, there should be about 6 people. Looking at the shoe prints under his feet, Tang Tian made a general analysis, which made Colonel Daki nod his head, and then turned his head to look at Billy. That's right. Moreover, there was a fierce gun battle nearby. It should be those guerrillas. We can look over here. Billy pointed to the northwest direction, frowned, and made his own deduction. Based on these clues, they started to walk again. After walking about 300 meters, the crows' chirping sound became clearer, and the bloody smell around them became stronger. As we all know, crows are scavengers. Since there are crows, it proves that some of their people died here. Feeling that the situation over there was not good, Unfavorable immediately climbed up the branch, like a spirit monkey, and found out that there was a horrifying scene inside. That is, 3 skinned soldiers were directly hung upside down on the tree. Blood it also flows continuously from the body. Seeing this, Billy was also disgusted. He quickly got to know these soldiers, found a nameplate, and handed it to Colonel Dutch. Those guys dared to treat our people like this, find them, and kill them all. Colonel Daki held the bloody nameplate, his eyes were extremely fierce. Understood, sir. The rest of the team members were also very angry and decided to take revenge on the enemy. Hee, it looks like the game is about to start. Looking at the gazes of these team members, Tang Tian's expression did not change at all. He took a panoramic view of everything. In his opinion, apart from the fact that the predator can be his opponent, other things in this world are not qualified at all. Then, after deciding to retaliate, the members of Dutch's team followed their footprints to the hillside outside the base camp of this group of guerrillas, and used binoculars to observe carefully. Colonel, there are about 100 people in total, and the weapons are only average. We can launch a sneak attack at any time. Tang Tian checked the situation, then turned his head and said to Colonel Daki. Okay, let's deal with them separately. Their clear whistle and dark whistle will launch a general attack directly after the end. Colonel Daki waved his hand, and the members of the team scattered in all directions, looking for their targets separately, and quickly carried out the assault. Tang Tian's movements were not slow either. He climbed up a branch, and using the absorption ability of chakra, like a monkey, he jumped over the branches and came to a ridge with ease, without being noticed by anyone. At this time, the 2 armed men on the ridge were smoking cigarettes, chatting away bored, and seemed to be quite comfortable, not caring about the danger above their heads at all. Looking at the scene in front of him, Tang Tian's eyes revealed a mockery. He snapped his fingers, and 2 slender steel needles appeared directly in his hand. Of course, these steel needles were naturally taken out of the ring, and they were also a batch of cold weapons specially made by Tang Tian. Combined with the electromagnetic force that he can manipulate the magnetic field, it is definitely a good weapon for assassination. Whizzing. After the two undetectable voices appeared, the eyes of the two armed men widened, and their consciousness gradually fell into darkness. After killing these two, Tang Tian smoothly dragged the corpse into the jungle to avoid being discovered by other armed men, which can be described as very straightforward. Not far away, Colonel Daki took a telescope and carefully looked at the situation around Tang Tian, only to find that the two armed men were easily dealt with. My God, is this a magic trick? The boy from the east really gave me too many surprises. Colonel Daki's eyes were full of surprises, and he never expected Tang Tian's handling method to be so straightforward. For Colonel Daki, this boy from the east has many methods. In his impression, this guy's individual quality is the second-ranked level in their team. This is also Colonel Daki, who asked Tang Tian to join this operation. Important reason. In addition, the rest of the team members shot very quickly. They executed their targets in less than 2 shots, which made Colonel Dak very satisfied. Immediately afterwards, Colonel Daki took the lead, went to their camp alone, hid behind them, and quietly pasted a bomb on a car. While these people were not paying attention, Colonel Daki pushed the car out, and when the car was out of control and moving forward, he shot without hesitation. On the other side, Tang Tian walked over unhurriedly, picked up a shoulder rocket launcher, and suddenly pressed the trigger. With a sound of whoosh, the rocket missile exploded in the crowd, and produced a strong flame, directly blasting 5 or 6 militants out. Naturally, after discovering Tang Tian's high-profile appearance, dozens of guns were aimed at his position, and countless tongues of flames also slashed, as if wanting to tear the enemy in front of him. Boring attack. Facing the attacks of these militants, Tang Tian didn't even lift his eyelids. An invisible magnetic field controlled all the bullets, and turned around, flying back to where they were originally at a faster speed. PFF'd. In an instant, dozens of armed men fell down in an instant. Their eyes were still full of fear, as if they did not expect Tang Tian to possess such terrifying power. For a moment, all the militants here were timid, and Colonel Daki naturally would not miss this opportunity, and hastily pressed the trigger in his hand. In less than 5 minutes, everything here was wiped out, leaving only a ruined wall. Except for a prisoner Anna who was captured by them, there was nothing left. During the period, the cunning Dylan found a confidential document here, and then left here, which made Colonel Daki feel very confused about Dylan's mission, and felt that he had something to hide from him. When the task was over, Billy also came to him with a look of amazement, looked carefully at Tang Tian in front of him, and asked suspiciously, Tang Tian, did you use Oriental witchcraft just now? Why do these bullets bounce back instead? Billy asked in surprise, and the rest of the team members were also staring at Tang Tian, wanting to know the answer. Haha, strictly speaking, this is Chinese Kung Fu. Only people like me can practice it, so you don't have to feel strange. Hearing what Billy said, Tang Tian also casually made up a reason, but the members of Dacha's team didn't have any objection at all. And after mowing the grass with the power Wushwang, Tang Tian also enjoyed this kind of fighting process very much, and could use it to gain more benefits for himself. In the forest, the predator hid in the dark. With the help of thermal detectors, it was easy to find their location, and they were ready to hunt. This hidden predator is still underage, but as long as he can catch the prey, his coming-of-age ceremony will be completed and he will officially become a real predator. Not far away, there were 3 adult predators looking at him, as if they were testing whether the predator who held the coming-of-age ceremony was qualified to become a new soldier. On the other side, Dacha's team, which had taken away the enemy's headquarters, also used the route planned in advance to quickly retreat to prevent the arrival of enemy reinforcements. After walking for a while, they came to a bush, but Tang Tian suddenly stopped in his tracks, making a gesture forbidding to move forward. What's the matter, Tang Tian, did you find anything? Seeing Tang Tian's cautious look, Colonel Daki asked suspiciously. Of course, there's something over there. I feel like it's something that's not easy to solve. Tang Tian pointed at the place where the predator was hiding, and said in an extremely serious manner, which made Colonel Daki slightly taken aback, and there was a hint of disbelief in his eyes. Before waiting for Colonel Daki to give the order to explore there, the captive Anna quietly put her hand behind her, picked up a wooden stick at random, and slammed it on Ramirez's head. With a sound of bump, Ramirez, who didn't take any precautions, was knocked to the ground immediately. The captive Anna ran out immediately when he saw the opportunity, but Tang Tian, who had reacted, put a knife on her chest, neck. Unfortunately, the escape game is over. Now go back to the original place, or die. Tang Tian said threateningly. With a slight force on the knife in his hand, a bloodstain appeared on Anna's neck. Feeling Tang Tian's killing intent, Anna trembled all over with fright, and could only look at Tang Tian with a kind of fearful gaze, as if she was afraid of him. Hey, I'm so unlucky, I actually got a sap. Ramirez felt a burning pain in his head, and looked at Anna with a fierce look, also very angry. Suddenly, before Ramirez stepped forward to teach Anna a lesson, there was a rustling sound in the forest in the distance, which made Colonel Dak immediately realize that Tang Tian's gun was also aimed at that side. Thinking of what Tang Tian said, Colonel Daki waved his hand, and Hawkins was reminded, so he stepped forward to check carefully. Haha, it's a hedgehog, there's no danger here. In the end, in the swaying bushes, he found a hedgehog fleeing from the road, which made Hawkins heave a sigh of relief, feeling that his teammate Tang Tian wanted to make a fuss. However, when most of the team members relaxed, Tang Tian still remained vigilant, looking at the jungle in the distance, not letting go of even a little clue. Suddenly, a dark blue plasma cannon flew from the depths of the jungle and attacked Tang Tian's location, as if trying to put him to death. Fortunately, Tang Tian's reaction was fast enough, using the acceleration of chakra to avoid the attack of the plasma cannon, but Bude beside him was unlucky, was hit in the chest directly, fell to the ground and never lived again. Enemy attack, open fire. After discovering the enemy, Colonel Daki did not hesitate and ordered his team members to shoot back directly. Da 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 da. For a while, bullets like a rainstorm covered the place where the predator was hiding, but the opponent was very fast. Using the advantage of invisibility, he quickly climbed up the tree, perfectly avoiding all the attacks. Taking advantage of the moment when they launched an attack, the plasma shoulder cannon on the predator's shoulder released 5 energy cannons again, smashing towards Tang Tian unstoppably. Looking at the dense plasma cannons, Tang Tian's eyes instantly turned into kaleidoscope Sharingans, and a giant skeleton appeared on his body, resisting the attack of the plasma shoulder cannons. Zzzz. Facing the fierce plasma cannon, the millions of degrees of high temperature released, even Susano's defense, easily melted part of the bones. After that, a few more plasma cannons passed by, and Tang Tian had already activated the Susano almost completely, and strengthened the defense again. It's just that Ramirez behind him was not so lucky. He was hit directly to the point. Like Bude, he let out a scream and fell to the ground. Facing the difficulty of the predator, Tang Tian responded calmly, gently picked up the knife in his hand, and a blue electromagnetic force burst out suddenly. In less than 3 seconds, the knife injected with enough energy was thrown out by Tang Tian at once, turning into a meteor, piercing the predator's thigh. PFF'd. Facing the knife on his leg, the predator didn't hesitate at all, and pulled out the knife, and the green fluorescent blood sprinkled all over the forest. Use bazookas and howitzers, and blow this place down for me. Colonel Daki said fiercely. His eyes were also full of unprecedented seriousness. It didn't look like he was joking at all. After receiving the order, 3 shoulder-fired rocket launchers and 2 howitzers were lifted up, and after the deafening explosion sounded, they attacked again, destroying all the small forest. After the battle, the members of Dach's team explored and found no trace of the attacker, which made Colonel Dak very upset. Billy, how are our casualties? Colonel Dutch asked carefully. His eyes filled with anger, and he asked Billy seriously. Ramirez and Bude were killed. Melted by unknown technological weapons. Billy's face was equally ugly. Seeing his teammates die one by one, they were quite uncomfortable. After thinking about it, Colonel Dak calmed down a little, and came to Tang Tian. He always felt that Tang Tian knew a little secret, so he wanted to ask. Tang Tian, what is that thing? Why is it so weird? Colonel Daki asked carefully, wanting to learn more about the predator. I don't know, but they should regard us as hunting targets. In addition, they have invisible technology and equipment, and they are very difficult characters to deal with. Tang Tian did not reveal the information about the predator. In his opinion, entering this world is a rare adventure. If the secret is revealed so soon, the game will not be fun. Okay, I see, we will definitely catch him next time. Colonel Daki nodded, and ordered his subordinates to start burying the corpses of their teammates and clean up the nearby battlefield. And Tang Tian picked up the knife that was just a flying knife, and looked at the green blood stains on it, with a smile on his face, thinking that this jungle adventure game would become more exciting. After burying the two team members, Colonel Daki decisively ordered Dylan to contact the headquarters and inform them of the ambush he encountered here, hoping that the helicopter would arrive earlier. However, the last time they got was around 8 o'clock the next day, that is to say, they had to stay in such a dangerous place for about 14 hours. Thinking of this, they came to a mountaintop for safety reasons, and began to set up primitive traps, trying to surprise the predator. While they were setting up the trap, there was a beast-like scream in the distant forest, which shocked Dacha's team and accelerated the speed of setting up the trap. Through their hard work, sufficient traps were set up around the camp, and the power was not weak. Not only were there pits, but there were also ground stabs inside, which were enough to cause casualties to the predator. However, Colonel Dak didn't feel that he could hurt the predator at this level alone, so he looked at Tang Tian, wanting to ask for some valuable advice. At night, after lighting a bonfire, Colonel Daki sat beside Tang Tian and asked, "Tang Tian, do you think we are sure we can get rid of that monster?" "No, on the contrary, I think we are partially sure. Without understanding his habits, it is the most stupid choice to attack rashly." Tang Tian shook his head and made a reasonable judgment. He didn't think that the members of Daki's team could win. In terms of combat quality, the predator was better than them in all aspects. If he wanted to destroy the predator, unless Tang Tian used the kaleidoscope Sharingan and opened a big move, he might be able to kill the predator in seconds, otherwise it might take some effort to deal with the predator. Moreover, the kaleidoscope Sharingan cannot be used at all times, because there are still a few predators around, so it is completely unwise to reveal all the strength as soon as possible. Habits. I think the locals know it. After being reminded, Major Daki's eyes suddenly lit up. Holding a dagger, he cut the rope in Anna's hand and started questioning her. Finally, under the threat of Colonel Dak, Anna revealed part of the information about the predator, which made Colonel Dak feel relieved and had a solution to the predator. Soon, Colonel Daki called the team members, and after pointing out the weakness of the predator, the rest of the team members also nodded, their eyes filled with infinite hope. "That fool hiding in the dark, we must find him out." Hawkins thought of the two teammates who died in battle, and his tone was extremely angry. "Calm down. The hidden thing is not easy to deal with, everyone be careful to complete the task." Seeing their confident faces, Tang Tian couldn't help pouring cold water on them. After all, self-confidence is a good thing, but if you are too confident, it may turn into arrogance, which is not conducive to the cooperation between them, so they still have to keep calm. After that, everything became logical. Tang Tian and Colonel Dak reinforced the trap again, and Tang Tian put AC-5 weighing 4 kilograms directly on top of the trap net, and wrapped it in wet cloth. Mud, preventing the predator's thermal imaging system, found the trap here. In order to be safe, Tang Tian also put the detonation button directly in the ring, so that he can take it out at will when it is convenient for him to take it. It didn't take long for them to construct the extremely complicated trap, and they took turns to be on duty, checking some surrounding areas, and their weapons were loaded at any time, ready to fire. Regarding this, Tang Tian didn't talk nonsense, instead he took a rest calmly, and seized the time to regain his energy to deal with that hateful predator. This time, their ambush was foolproof, and the predator was probably doomed. With reasonable means, they had already made preparations. It's a pity, I don't know if the predator deliberately whetted their appetite. They didn't show up for a whole night, until the sky slowly lit up again, a strong killing intent suddenly spread. For a moment, Colonel Daki stood up quickly, picked up his weapon, and walked slowly towards the position of the trap. He could feel that the invisible monster should be nearby. If he worked hard, he should be able to find the opponent's body. In comparison, Tang Tian appeared not far from him, and Chakra sensed it slightly, and found that the predator was already close to the trap. Looking at this scene, Tang Tian was not polite at all, took out a button, and pressed it suddenly. Boom! With a sound, the hidden predator had just stepped into the trap, and a soaring flame appeared under his feet, blowing him out all of a sudden. Unfortunately, Colonel Daki was also the first to bear the brunt of the huge impact, and his scalp became numb from the shock, and the violent noise also made other team members rush over. As soon as they arrived, Billy and the others found a strange creature covered in smoke, wearing a pig face mask, and covered in silver-white armor. It was struggling desperately, and seemed to want to escape from this place. That's right, this guy is a predator. After being attacked by C4, the armor on his body was also broken a lot, and the green blood flowed down as if he didn't want money. Looking at this scene, the members of Daki's team were dumbfounded, and they didn't react for a while, as if they were extremely surprised. Hey guys, why are you standing still? Hurry up and beat the dog in the water. Tang Tian said loudly, and casually took out a bazooka from his back, installed a rocket, and blasted the predator away again. Oh. After being reminded, Gatling in Hawkins' hands, which bears the brunt of the blow, turned into a storm of death, intertwined with the firepower of others, and sent the predator flying several steps away again. Suddenly, Colonel Daki managed to recover from the impact of the explosion, and he did not lag behind. He also took out the howitzer and started bombing. After continuing to clean up for 10 minutes, the predator stretched out his hand for the last time, and then completely lost his vitality, apparently completely killed by them. Solved. What kind of monster is this? It has such a powerful force. After finishing the solution, Colonel Daki looked at the predator who fell on the ground, and said with some sighs, I think this one should be an alien, otherwise, it would definitely not have such combat power. Tang Tian began to evaluate meticulously. Just after finishing speaking, he looked greedily at the predator's iron-blooded shoulder cannon, and there was an expression of obsession in his eyes. You must know that the important reason for Tang Tian to use the World Experience card is to obtain powerful alien technology and bring it back to the Marvel world for use. This is his most important purpose. In the forest, in front of a camp, Colonel Daki gasped loudly, looking at the predator killed by them. There was a hint of pride in his eyes, feeling that the monster was finally wiped out. In order to achieve this step, they sacrificed 2 soldiers, and now they can take revenge, which also makes Colonel Daki feel unprecedentedly happy. Wow, guys, we won. Colonel Dutch raised his hands in celebration and joy. That's right, it's time, let's see the true face of this guy. On one side, Hawkins also heroically unwrapped the predator's mask, and found an ugly alien face, which made him shudder with fright. My god, this ghost thing, our hometown once left a legend. That is this race, a natural hunter, and it has come to the earth a long time ago. Billy lit a cigar, and while smoking, he recalled the predator, and said with some sighs. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Look at this guy, what good things are on him. Facing the conversation of this group of guys, Tang Tian didn't talk nonsense, and picked up the predator's equipment, wanting to collect something useful to him. As a result, seeing Tang Tian's movements, Colonel Dak and Delon's eyes suddenly lit up, and they rushed over with one stride. They disassembled the useful things on the predator without any explanation. It didn't take long for them to remove a lot of armor pieces, 2 iron-blooded daggers, an iron-blooded spear, boomerangs, heat detectors, and iron-blooded bombs. It can be seen that the predator has fully developed the line of elite soldiers to the extreme. With this level of individual weapons, destroying several squads is not the same as playing games. Seeing this, Tang Tian casually picked up an iron-blooded bomb and iron-blooded dagger, and casually said to them, I want these 2 things, and you share the rest. Looking at the iron-blood bomb in his hand, Tang Tian impolitely put the dagger in his waist, and he stuffed the iron-blood bomb into his backpack. It is good. Facing Tang Tian's arrangement, Colonel Daki was not surprised at all, and shared these weapons with the team members around him, which were their rare spoils in this battle. After the allocation, Colonel Daki seemed to have thought of something, turned his head to look at Tang Tian, and asked carefully, Tang Tian, do you think those predators will attack us again? Colonel Daki felt a little uncertain, so he wanted to rely on Tang Tian's perception to make his own judgment. Of course, why not? In fact, my current sense of crisis has not been relieved, and there seems to be something over there. So we must be careful, otherwise, capsizing the ship in the gutter is not the right choice. Tang Tian reminded, his eyes were full of unparalleled prudence. However, it's also good to have the predator, so that Tang Tian can get his predator cannon, take it back to the Marvel world for research, and enhance his own technology. Therefore, in the face of the next crisis, Tang Tian still has his confidence that he can handle all this matter well. I understand. We must be careful when we arrive at the helicopter. I hope we can complete this mission smoothly. Colonel Daki's eyes were full of firmness, and he signaled the team members around him to be careful. After giving the order, they began to evacuate slowly. 3 minutes later, after they had finished their work, the 3 predators wearing pig face masks were completely revealed with thunderbolts flashing on their bodies. One of them, the huge iron-blooded squad leader, stood still and shook his head when he saw that the iron-blooded soldier had not passed the coming-of-age ceremony in the end. In the end, they re-entered the invisible state, and began to track Tang Tian's position, as if they didn't want to let them go. What I have to say is that the predator guys are a very strange race. On the basis of human beings in the system, they actually use invisible equipment to attack humans. It can be said that it is very disgraceful to use a sneak attack method when it is possible to fight openly, but this world is like this, and it belongs to the rule of the jungle. They have no possibility of backing down. On the other side, when the Iron Blood squad started to pursue, Tang Tian and Colonel Daki were not slow, and they were still about 300 meters away from the retreat point. Because they were still taking Anna as a prisoner, their speed of movement was also affected. When they came to a single plank bridge, Tang Tian felt a strong killing intent. Through the induction of chakra, Tang Tian found 2 predator soldiers ambushing behind them. It is estimated that as soon as they pass by, they may launch an attack directly. Stop, Colonel, there's something over there, those monsters should be here. Tang Tian pointed to the area not far away, and said seriously. What? Hearing Tang Tian's reminder, Colonel Dak was startled, stopped along with the others, and aimed his gun at the place Tang Tian was pointing at. Let's go. I'm staying here, I still have some things to do. Tang Tian waved his hand and said solemnly that he wanted the members of Daki's team to leave this place directly. No, how could I let you stay here alone? We have to go together. Hearing Tang Tian's words, Colonel Daki quickly objected, as if he didn't want one of his teammates to stay here. Unexpectedly, before Colonel Daki finished speaking, 3 iron-blooded spears flew across suddenly, and the 2 team members Hawkins and Mike were caught off guard and were directly stabbed in the abdomen and shoulders. Da 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 da. Facing the sudden attack, a dense firepower streaked across, temporarily suppressing the predator's attack, but it also made Colonel Daki extremely entangled. Okay, instead of being entangled here, it's better to leave quickly. This operation should also be over, you guys retreat. After Tang Tian finished speaking, he turned around, threw away the weapon in his hand, picked up the iron-blooded dagger with his backhand, and raised it high, as if provoking the iron-blooded warrior. Oh, that's fine, I can still see you after finishing this task. Colonel Daki looked again, and the 2 injured team members pulled out their iron-blooded spears, led them to the single plank bridge, and quickly began to retreat. While watching Colonel Daki and the others retreat, there was no change on the observer's face. With an abnormally calm expression, he stabbed the iron-blooded dagger on the single plank bridge, and waited quietly. Almost when he made such an action, the 2 predators in the distance officially started to move, and the other predator seemed to be chasing Colonel Daki and the others. In this way, a head-on confrontation is about to begin, and the battle between humans and aliens begins. In the forest, on the single plank bridge, Tang Tian stood here, without the slightest panic on his face. After sensing the arrival of the 2 iron-blooded soldiers, he took advantage of the situation and raised the iron-blooded dagger to challenge them. Predator, hee, you are just a group of hidden cockroaches. After saying this, Tang Tian waited quietly. Through his induction, the predator was less than 20 meters away from his position. Crackling. Following the appearance of a burst of electromagnetic sparks, 2 predators wearing pig face masks appeared in front of his eyes. One of them was the tallest, and his silver-white armor looked extremely solid. Looking at the iron-blooded suits on their bodies, Tang Tian also showed enthusiasm on his face, thinking about how to completely strip off their armor from them. For a while, the atmosphere began to be at a stalemate, and the 2 of them also confronted each other, and neither of them took the lead to break the rare tranquility. Finally, the tall predator turned on the computer on his arm, pressed a few times, and only a slightly stiff English appeared in his ear. Humans, according to our judgment, you are the most qualified prey, so I want to challenge you personally. The tall predator immediately removed the iron blood shoulder cannon from his waist after speaking, leaving behind an iron blood spear, which was tightly held in his hand, and rushed over without saying a word. It's boring to say, you are my prey. Tang Tian opened his mouth provocatively, and similarly raised the iron-blooded dagger in his hand. A surge of lightning energy was poured into it, emitting a dangerous blue fluorescence in the slightly dim environment. Seeing that they were about to face off, another predator obediently stood aside, leaving enough room for them to fight. Ready, the tall predator was the first to bear the brunt, and he suddenly raised the silver spear, stabbing Tang Tian unstoppably. Seeing this, Tang Tian was not polite. He struck back, and a violent spark appeared instantly. The predator obviously felt that a huge force penetrated the spear and passed to him, making him feel a little uncomfortable all over. Facing the attack of the predator, Tang Tian performed with ease, blocked more than a dozen moves of the predator in a row, and left deep and visible injuries on his body, but the predator didn't even have the hem of his clothes caught. How is it possible? How can human beings be so powerful? The tall predator, feeling the pain all over his body, asked incredulously in stiff English. No, you are too weak. You should be sent directly on the road. Tang Tian smiled coldly. The iron-blooded dagger in his hand was not slow at all. Using the acceleration of electromagnetic force, it suddenly appeared in front of the iron-blooded warrior. Raising the knife in his hand, Tang Tian slashed across the neck of the predator, and in an instant, green fluorescent blood flowed down, fell down. After dealing with the predator, Tang Tian waved his hand, and the predator disappeared together with its equipment, and he directly stuffed it into the ring. However, another predator on the side discovered this scene, immediately activated the optical stealth system, and disappeared in place. Hee, want to play hide and seek? Unfortunately, I grew up playing this. Looking at the scene in front of him, Tang Tian said contemptuously, not taking this matter to heart. Whoosh whoosh. Being provoked again, this predator was not polite at all, and dozens of plasma cannons were released, smashing towards his position. As a result, Tang Tian remained motionless, his eyes suddenly turned into kaleidoscope Sharingan, and the sky blue Susanoo completely covered his body. When countless plasma cannons fell on it, as expected, they were directly bounced off by the 8-foot mirror, which did not cause the slightest trouble to Tang Tian. Not bad power, but game over here. Let me send you to God. Tang Tian ignored the predator's attack, and raised the 10-fist sword in his hand. A huge sword energy slashed across. The predator who was hiding aside was shaken, and finally fell limply. In less than 3 seconds, a beheaded predator came into Tang Tian's eyes, and he couldn't help but smile. There were only 3 predators in total, and now he has taken away 2 of them, and their equipment is exceptionally good, which is also good news for Tang Tian. After thinking about it, Tang Tian took off the predator's suit without hesitation, and stuffed it into his ring. Then he turned around and continued walking in the direction of Colonel Daki. Of course, Tang Tian stayed here definitely not for the sake of Colonel Dak, but for the mission. You must know that the most important reason for the delay in ending this world is that the 3 predators were not killed. Since the first predator was killed by a gang fight, the system does not count it. Hee, the harvest this time is not bad. With these 2 iron blood suits, I can upgrade my steel armor. While advancing quickly, he thought flatteringly in his heart that with these alien technologies, his technological level could be increased a bit, and it was a good trip. At this time, the situation on Colonel Dutch's side was not very optimistic. Only Billy and Colonel Dutch managed to escape from birth and hid in a rock crevice to avoid being detected by the predator. Hey, I finally found his weakness, now it's time for us to fight back. Colonel Dutch looked cold. His whole body was covered with a layer of wet mud. He looked like a mud monkey, looked at Billy beside him and said, "Understood, Colonel. After being hunted down by him for so long, it's time for us to take revenge." Billy nodded seriously. His eyes were extraordinarily cold. Yes, Mike and Dylan were all killed by the predator, and only the 2 of them were left. They jumped into the waterfall in a hurry to avoid the predator's pursuit. Unknown. For the attack of the predator, Dutch's team basically had no time to react. Most of them had already been killed by the predator. If they were not lucky, they might be finished. Fortunately, this time Colonel Dutch and Billy discovered the weakness of the predator, that is, after they were covered in wet mud, the heat detection of the predator was no longer effective. It can be said that this is also a rare good news for them, but they don't know what is going on with Tang Tian, which makes Colonel Daki very worried. However, what they didn't know was that Tang Tian not only approached the predator smoothly, but also rushed towards their position at a high speed. In less than 10 minutes, he might appear directly at this place. In the dense forest, Colonel Dacke lit a bonfire. At the same time, he took the dagger and sharpened the wooden thorns one by one, and started to make traps with the vines. Billy on one side cooperated with Colonel Dutch, and set traps around them. "Sir, the trap has been set up, but I don't know if we can get rid of the predator," Billy asked with some uncertainty. He still had no confidence in defeating the predator, so he couldn't help but look at Colonel Dutch. "Yes, we are the strongest fighters in the jungle, how could we lose? Don't worry, when the time comes, we will retreat safely." Colonel Dutch looked at Billy seriously, picked up the improvised bow and arrow, and gave Billy a gesture, and the two of them consciously came to the wet mud, and evenly applied it all over their bodies. After the end, Colonel Dutch threw 2 bullets and fell into the bonfire, and the two of them hid among the branches and began to hide. Boom! In less than 2 seconds, the bullet exploded, followed by a rustling sound, which also appeared from far away in the woods, and with a flash of thunder, a tall predator appeared not far from them place. After some detection, the predator found nothing unusual, and did not detect Colonel Darcy and Billy at all. Feeling that he might be superstitious, the predator was suspicious for a while, and started to investigate carefully, but when he stepped on the trap, a few sharp wooden thorns pierced through his feet. Roar! For a moment, green blood flowed out without any money. Colonel Dacke also took the opportunity to take out the bow and arrow, and tied a high explosive bomb to the arrow branch. He suddenly filled the bow and arrow and released it. Whoosh! Caught off guard, the predator was directly hit in the chest, and the high explosive bomb exploded, sending the predator flying 5 or 6 meters away. Looking at this rare opportunity, Billy didn't want to miss it at all, picked up an iron-blooded spear, and ruthlessly stabbed the iron-blooded soldier in the head. However, the predator's combat awareness was too strong, and he sensed the danger, so he grabbed Billy's predator spear with his backhand, and punched Billy flying. Sensing the imminent danger, the predator didn't hesitate at all. The predator's shoulder cannon on his shoulder turned suddenly, and a few plasma cannons hit him quickly. Fortunately, Billy and Colonel Dutch avoided in time to avoid any harm to them. Amaterasu. Just as the battle between them was reaching a fever pitch, a familiar voice came from a distance, and Colonel Dutch and Billy couldn't help it. When they turned their heads, they found Tang Tien's unhurried manner. "Come." In addition, a group of black flames suddenly enveloped the predator's body, and instantly ignited him into a black fireball. Ho-ho-ho! Facing the strange black flames and the scorching heat, the predator screamed and jumped into the wet mud, trying to suppress the flames. However, the reason why Amaterasu is because of his indestructible characteristics, so even if the predator struggles desperately, there is no possibility of breaking free. After going on for 10 minutes, the armor on the predator was directly burned, and even the predator inside was directly reduced to ashes. Looking at the scene in front of them, Colonel Dutch and Billy were stunned. They never expected Tang Tien to have such strength. Ding! The task of eliminating at least 3 predators has been completed, and the host will be rewarded with a chance to draw a lottery. Ding! The host's world experience has been completed, and it will officially return to the Marvel world in 3 minutes. Basically, after Tang Tien dealt with the 3 predators, the voice of mission completion came from the system on time, which made him more confident. "My God, Tang Tien, how did you do it? It's really incredible." Seeing that they paid a huge price, the predator who couldn't deal with it was actually easily killed by Tang Tien, which subverted Colonel Dacke's 3 views. "It's nothing, it's just a small trick. Alright, now that these predators have been dealt with, it's time to bid farewell to you." Tang Tien waved his hand, as if he wanted to leave. "What? Where are you going back to?" Colonel Dacke was shocked and didn't know where Tang Tien wanted to go. "Of course, it's time to return to my own world. Thank you for your company during this time." Tang Tien smiled slightly, and a white beam of light surrounded him, turning him into strands of white light particles, and disappeared in place. Soon, the scene in front of Tang Tien changed, and he returned to his private villa again. Looking at the familiar environment, he was in a good mood. "Haha, the harvest this time is really good. Take a good rest first, and then hand over these alien technologies to John for research and development." Thinking of the 2 sets of iron-blooded suits he had harvested this time, Tang Tien was still extraordinarily excited. He ordered a takeaway, took a shower, and began to rest comfortably. In the early morning of the next day, Tang Tian got up early, took a special car to Osborne Industry, and entered the underground laboratory. Coming to John's laboratory again, Tang Tian saw that the T-850 robot had been perfectly manufactured and put aside, waiting to be activated. "Boss, you are here." John lowered his head, looked at Tang Tian in front of him respectfully, and asked him, "Well, I have something to give you, I hope you can get it and study it properly." Tang Tian nodded, and took out 2 sets of predator weapons from the ring, and placed them neatly on the ground. "What is this thing? It seems to be quite high-tech. Boss, where did you find it?" After playing with it carefully, John clearly knew the technological content inside, so he couldn't help asking Tang Tian. "It's alien technology. The world experience card I got just now came to another world. This is what I got. I studied the technology of the iron-blooded shoulder cannon and the iron-blooded bomb into my steel armor. I have a hunch it won't be long before it's available." After Tang Tian issued the order, he always felt that it would not be long before he had bigger things to do, so he asked John for it. "Understood, sir. Within a month, I will modify and upgrade the steel armor." John readily agreed, without any hesitation. As a robot, he would not refuse the master's proposal, but made Tang Tian very satisfied with the other party's loyalty. "Okay, then I will leave it to you. I will wait for your good news." Tang Tian stood up and left here directly after giving the order, which was also a correct choice for him. So far, Tang Tian's strength has been growing steadily. I believe that it will definitely reach an astonishing level in a short time, and start to embark on the journey of hegemony. In the shareholders' office, Osborne Industries, New York City. After a period of hard work, Tang Tian gradually took control of the vampires and werewolves. Such a super soldier force, and John Connor developed a mechanical force for him, allowing him to expand his power in all directions. So, for a while, Tang Tian was quite proud, sitting in the office alone, tasting the black tea that Serena, the goddess of the moon, personally brewed for him. "Boss, you've left everything to me during this time, and it's not good to be the shopkeeper alone." Serena came gently in front of Tang Tian, pinched his shoulders for him, and said helplessly, "Hee, what does it matter? You are my secretary, and you manage my huge power. I don't think it's good if you don't work hard." Hearing Serena's words, Tang Tian turned his head, pinched her face, and said with a teasing smile, "Ever since taking revenge for Serena, this woman has become very close to him, and she has almost satisfied any of her requests. She is regarded as a model among secretaries, and Tang Tian has been living in a land of tenderness for the past 2 days and cannot extricate himself." Crunch. At the moment when they were flirting, Deadpool suddenly pushed open the door and strode over, instantly disturbing Tang Tian's mood and making him a little unhappy. "Deadpool, what's the matter? Come over so anxiously, please give me a reasonable explanation." Tang Tian made a gesture of invitation, wanting to see Deadpool come over in such a hurry. What big things would come to him? "Sorry, boss, I also know that I shouldn't disturb you. However, a lady strongly asked to come in, and said that she knew you very well and was your ex-girlfriend." Hearing this, Deadpool smiled awkwardly, recalling the woman with long blonde hair and a good figure at the door, and explained thoughtfully, "Ex-girlfriend." Regarding Deadpool's reply, Tang Tian was slightly taken aback, thinking of the youthful and beautiful figure in his memory. He couldn't help showing nostalgia. Obviously the ex-girlfriend of his predecessor was not simple at all. Unexpectedly, when he was thinking about the memory of his ex-girlfriend just now, Serena walked over and grabbed the soft flesh behind Tang Tian's waist, making him suddenly come back to his senses. "Boss, when did you have an ex-girlfriend? I didn't expect to come to your door. This is really a bad thing." Serena looked very angry, so she added another point to her hand. In an instant, Tang Tian's expression began to twist. He quickly stopped Serena, and continued to attack him. "Okay, Serena, this is a misunderstanding. I met Betty Ross in college. I dated her for 3 years. In the end, we broke up because she devoted herself to science." Faced with Serena's doubts and jealousy, Tang Tian quickly reminded him that he didn't want Serena to think too much. "It's almost there." Serena finally nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Seeing Serena's well-behaved appearance, Tang Tian asked Deadpool to bring Betty Ross to see his ex-girlfriend and find out what he could do. Of course, Betty Ross's identity is not simple. She is not only a military scientist, but also a famous military leader, the apple of the eye of General Ross. It can be said that Betty rose herself as a talented girl with both strength and beauty. This time, she came to find herself, and she didn't know what would happen. Maybe it would trigger a mission. 3 minutes later, under the leadership of Deadpool, a beautiful woman with a curvy figure walked over straight away. When she saw Tang Tian sitting on the desk, a hint of surprise suddenly appeared in her eyes. I finally saw you, Tang Tian, long time no see. Betty Ross walked over in surprise. Tang Tianyan stood up slowly, and before he could react, the beauty immediately hugged him, and said reluctantly. Yes, it's been a long time, haven't we seen each other for 2 years? Tang Tian patted Betty on the back and said with some emotion. That's right. At first I thought we would never meet again, but unexpectedly, one day the TV station in New York City broadcast a picture of you fighting against the Lizard Man. This shocked me a bit, and you really became different from before. Quote. The joy on Betty's face and a hint of admiration made Tang Tian not know what to say. He didn't feel too surprised by what Betty said. Strictly speaking, Tang Tian didn't want to be famous on his own, but was required by the system to do so. Unexpectedly, he was discovered by Betty in the end, and he went to the door directly. It's nothing. It's just a small matter. Tell me what you want to do with me. Tang Tian shook his head, straight to the point, and wanted to ask Betty Ross what was the purpose of coming to him. Hearing Tang Tian's words, Betty Ross hesitated for a moment, as if mustering up the courage, stared at him with emerald green eyes, and spoke directly. Let me stay by your side. After a while, I will quit the laboratory of Gaohua University and come to Osborne Industries. Please let me stay with you all the time. For me, your status is invaluable, replaceable. Betty Ross looked at him sincerely. Since she wanted to get back together with him, Tang Tian was a little surprised, and even felt a little bloody. Suddenly, the eyes of Serena on the side changed, and she seemed to be a little unhappy and walked over, looking at Betty Ross in front of her vigilantly, and looked at him with an unhappy tone. Boss, my secretary is enough, your presence is unnecessary. Serena looked at Betty firmly, as if she wanted to confirm her position. Hee, that's not certain. I believe Tang Tian will never forget me. After waiting for such a long time, I have already made up my mind. Betty Ross didn't give in at all. The smell of gunpowder between the two women seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. If she didn't stop her, serious trouble might arise. Thinking about it, Betty's father is General Ross. If his daughter is wronged, he probably won't be able to please him. In addition, it will not do him any harm, so in the end Tang Tian made his own choice. Okay, Betty, I agree to your request. You are the person I liked before, and now I like you too. If it weren't for your scientific research, I wouldn't have left you. Tang Tian smiled and readily accepted Betty, which made Serena a little dissatisfied, but in the end he didn't say anything, and could only let his boss decide. Great, we can be together again. After receiving Tang Tian's affirmative answer, Betty was extremely excited, gave him a hug, and looked at him affectionately. By the way, you came to Osborne Industries alone. Did you tell your father? Thinking of General Ross, Tang Tian couldn't help asking. No, you don't need to tell my father about this matter, I can solve it by myself. Betty shook her head and said happily. Facing Betty's explanation, Tang Tian felt very helpless. Perhaps in the eyes of General Ross, he was originally a very talented scientist. Now that he has something to do with his daughter, maybe General Ross will come to him. It is also possible. Chapter 71. In California, in a heavily fortified military base. General Ross sat upright at the command post, picked up documents one after another, and started handling the daily work. He seemed to be very efficient and capable. On the outside, General Ross is already gray-haired, and he is at least 60 years old, but the iron and blood temperament in his body has not diminished in the slightest but has become more intense. There are many soldiers standing around, carefully protecting the safety of General Ross. It is estimated that there is a little trouble, and the enemy may be greeted by dense bullets. As the commander of the U.S. Homeland Guard, General Ross is even more famous for his iron blood and has great ambitions. He wants to use technology to create a super soldier force. For this reason, General Ross did not hesitate to spend a lot of money to find some superhuman serum information from Dr. Erskine's laboratory, but until now, there has been no substantial progress in research. In the end, General Ross chose to study gamma-ray weapons, trying to make some achievements in technological weapons. Unfortunately, an accident created Bruce Banner and turned him into a Hulk. It was because of this accident that General Ross's super soldier plan, which had been cooled, was finally put on the agenda again. However, the fighting power of the Hulk was beyond imagination. No matter what troops he sent, they all failed. This made General Ross anxious, but he had no choice but to use his own intelligence network to firmly lock Bruce Banner's location. When General Ross was feeling a little annoyed, a short and strong soldier walked over immediately, saluted General Ross, and told the latest location of Bruce Banner. "Sir, that big green man is wandering near Gaohua University in California. I don't know what he's going to do there. Our troops have been stationed around." Bronsky looked at Rose respectfully and explained the situation to him. "Very well, just wait and see what happens, don't make any moves. Then we will send out our troops and arrest them." General Ross waved his hand, but he didn't take this matter to heart. Anyway, in his opinion, as long as Bruce Banner didn't run far, it wasn't too important. "Understood, sir." Blonsky nodded without talking nonsense, and was about to leave here directly, but was stopped by General Ross directly. "Wait, Bronsky, where has my daughter been lately?" "Still in California." Suddenly, General Ross thought of his daughter, and couldn't help looking at Bronsky and asking. Although, as a military general, General Ross is usually very busy, but she never stops caring about her daughter. "No, Miss Betty Ross should be in New York City now. I'm going to find that Asian boy named Tang Tian." Bronsky explained in detail, without any concealment. Just as he finished speaking, General Ross's eyes suddenly lit up, exuding a bright light. For a moment, Bronsky was full of doubts, and he didn't understand his chief. It seemed that his nature suddenly became a little high. It seemed that the man Betty Ross was looking for was not simple. "Bronsky, prepare the car right away. I'm going to New York City. By the way, I'll give Tang Tian a notice, saying that I will go to him to talk about things in the evening," General Ross said confidently, and gave an order to Bronsky beside him, and then continued to review the documents. "Wait, General, is that man very special? It's worth meeting him in person." Bronsky was slightly taken aback, as if he couldn't believe it. "Of course, he has what I want. I was thinking about it. How about it? Now is the best opportunity to get it from him," General Ross said with emotion. After all, behind Tang Tian is the power of S.H.I.E.L.D., the shareholders of Osborne Industries and Hammer Military Industries, plus a legion of super soldiers. It is not an existence that General Ross can easily swallow. Now, with the help of his daughter, he might be able to get something good from Tang Tian's hands. This is also one aspect of General Ross's joy. On the other hand, Tang Tian and Betty also got along very well, and he was naturally very happy to be liked by a beautiful woman. He visited a lot of places with Betty in a day. It was a perfect date. At dusk, they sat on a deck chair in the park. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, Tang Tian kissed directly, which made the love in Betty's eyes even stronger. Up. Buzz. Just when their date was reaching the most critical moment, Tang Tian's mobile phone suddenly rang, which made him unable to resist turning on the phone, only to find that it was an unfamiliar number. "Hey, who is it and what do you want me for?" Tang Tian said in a neutral tone. His tone was not very happy, and he felt that his interest was suddenly interrupted, which also made him very upset. "It's me, Bronsky, General Ross's subordinate. Mr. Tang Tian, are you free tonight?" "Your Excellency General, I want to talk to you in person." Bronsky made a long story short, without any sign of muddling, and told him the whole story straightforwardly. "Understood. See you tonight. Come to the underground laboratory of Osborne Industries, and I will talk to General Ross." Tang Tian accepted decisively. Whether it was the identity of the other party's military or Betty Ross's father, these were the reasons for his acceptance. After hanging up the phone, Tang Tian showed such an expression, looking at Betty beside him, he didn't seem to find it strange. "What's the matter, Tang Tian, who called you? I feel that your expression is weird," Betty asked in surprise. always felt that this phone call was unusual, and the circumstances that could make Tang Tian show this expression should not be so simple. It's your father, General Ross. As I thought, your father seems to be, and wants to have a good chat with me. Tang Tian stretched out his hand, squeezed Betty's little face, and said it in a relaxed manner. Aren't you afraid? My father is a famous general in the military. When you negotiate with him, you should pay attention to it. He is very strong. Betty Rose carefully reminded that she didn't want the negotiations between the two of them to end unhappy, as this would be a bit of a waste. Haha, it's okay, it's just to meet my father-in-law, and I will definitely satisfy him. Because I have what he wants, and this is what your father desires. Tang Tian's eyes were very bright, and he said this sentence unhurriedly, which made Betty feel a little relieved. HMPH, who said I'm going to marry you? Hearing Tang Tian's words, Betty looked arrogant and turned around, not talking to him, but Betty's eyes showed surprise, as if she was very happy. Looking at Betty's expression, Tang Tian was also planning in his mind, what benefits would he give to General Ross, to further stabilize his own power. This was a direction he should consider. Night, Osborne Industries, Underground Laboratory. After an agreed time, General Ross and Bronsky arrived at Osborne Industries in a Humvee and got out of the car. As soon as he got out of the car, Lucian greeted General Ross, and said to him respectfully, "Please follow me, General Ross, boss. He is waiting for you in the laboratory." "Okay, let's lead the way," General Ross said majestically, and followed Lucian on the elevator to the hidden laboratory at a depth of 200 meters underground. Entering here, General Ross and Bronsky found the door, various types of Terminator, and T1 Terminator that can replace tanks. Looking at the gleaming T1, and the various T-800s wearing super alloys, General Ross was shocked and unbelievable. Originally, General Ross thought that Tang Tian had only made remarkable achievements in genetic enhancement, but he did not expect that in terms of mechanical technology manufacturing, it was completely beyond his imagination. With shocked eyes, General Ross came to the core laboratory, and saw Tang Tian and his daughter Betty sitting in the bright control room. "Father, I didn't expect you to come, please sit down." Facing the arrival of General Ross, Betty was also very happy, and kindly gave her father a hug, that is to say, she sat down with her father. "Okay, it's true that the female college is not accepted. You seem to have found a good man." General Ross looked appreciative, seeing Tang Tian's profound family fortune. General Ross naturally would not underestimate it, even Bronsky's eyes were full of infinite shock. "Where, father, I ignore you." Betty smiled shyly, and left the place, leaving only Tang Tian and General Ross looking at each other. After watching his daughter leave, General Ross said in a very appreciative tone, "It's our first meeting, Mr. Tang Tian, I have something important to talk to you about." "Please tell me, General Ross, as long as I can help you. I will do my best to help you. After all, there is still cooperation in the future. Do you want to trade with you?" Tang Tian was very forthright, and generously signaled General Ross to say directly that he would not raise any opinions. For a moment, General Ross was even more satisfied. He glanced at Bronsky beside him, and thought of his soldiers, so he looked at Tang Tian and said without hesitation, "Give me the genetic enhancer. I also want to have a super soldier army. I need at least 1,000 genetic enhancers. In addition, in order to catch a green monster recently, we need a lot of weapons. Can you sell some? Give us those robots." General Ross looked eager. As far as military generals were concerned, he was the richest one, so he couldn't wait to gain stronger power and expand his strength. Immediately, after learning what General Ross wanted, Tang Tian fell into silence, while Lucian on the other side had a look of disdain, always feeling that the other party was a bit aggressive. Unexpectedly, in addition to the gene enhancer, General Ross even wanted to hold the Terminator Legion in his hands. It can be seen how greedy the generals of this army are, and they just want to rack their brains to get good things in their hands. Therefore, Lucian didn't think that his boss would agree, and felt that the possibility of opposition was more likely. After all, his boss was not an ordinary person, and it was impossible for others to make things worse. Bronsky on the other side was also very excited when he heard what General Ross said. He himself has strengthened the incomplete super soldier serum. If he injects a new gene enhancer, his strength will become stronger without thinking. Yes, 1,000 genetic enhancers, no problem at all. At the same time, I will also provide 200 T1 type terminators for General Ross to conduct field tests. What do you think, General? Tang Tian said with a smile, as if everything had been planned. He looked at General Ross's face and showed a meaningful smile. Immediately afterwards, just as he thought, General Ross was really shocked and speechless. His eyes were full of excitement, and he stood up directly. Great, Mr. Tang Tian, thank you for your contribution to the military. Then whatever you want, as long as you want, the military can provide you. General Ross said excitedly, knowing what you want to get, you have to pay something, so General Ross wants to see what price he will pay. No, I don't have anything I want for now. Wait for General Ross to finish dealing with the green monster. We are continuing to discuss this matter. Tang Tian shook his head, not planning to ask for anything for the time being. In his opinion, it is time for the Hulk to appear next. It is a good idea to test it with the Terminator Legion. As for the negotiation, it can be left behind. One of the best choices. In this way, not only can he gain the favor of General Ross, but he can also successfully trigger the mission and gain great benefits from it. After saying this, Tang Tian snapped his fingers, and Lucian, who was beside him, took out a silver white box from the cold storage in the laboratory. After opening the box, there were about 1,000 genetic enhancers inside, shining brightly under the light. This is a genetic enhancer, but it may take a month to inject it to gain combat power. General Ross, please inject it carefully. As for the Terminator Legion, it has combat power at any time. I suggest against this green monster, use the Terminator Legion as the main force. Tang Tian handed over the box, and carefully suggested, hoping that General Ross would follow his advice. Haha, no problem, young man. You are really a good person, and the military will cooperate with you later. Here is my business card and phone number. If you need anything, you can come to me. After getting the heavy box in his hand, General Ross handed the box to Bronsky, took out a business card from his body, and handed it directly to Tang Tian in front of him. Well, no problem. Goodbye, then. Tang Tian smiled lightly, and watched General Ross leave. At the same time, he was relieved, thinking that if the Hulk appeared next time, he would definitely surprise him. Not long after, Betty Ross came out from the side again, bid farewell to his father, and seeing his excited smile, he knew that he was very satisfied with this meeting. Betty, I am very satisfied that you have made a good boyfriend. I will support you in whatever you do in the future. General Ross looked happy, looked at his daughter, and felt that she had made a very correct choice this time. Haha, no problem, father. Come here often when you have free time. Betty is also very happy. Their relationship has received their own support. This is really a good result and makes both parties very satisfied. 3 days later, Gaohua University, on campus. After agreeing to General Ross's request, Tang Tian also handed over 200 T1s to General Ross within 1 day, and also gave him the method of manipulating these robots. After dealing with all this, Betty invited him to Gaohua University in California to get some research materials of his own, and then left this place. So, they came here happily early in the morning, and the surrounding students also looked envious. Looking at their professor, they happily hugged Tang Tian's arm, which completely overturned their minds. The image of the goddess. You know, Betty Ross was an iceberg beauty in school, and any man who wanted to approach him was rejected by the other party, including Bruce Banner, who didn't get the slightest favor from Betty. Hey, it's really a good campus life. Thinking back to when we were in school, we were the couple that everyone envied the most. Tang Tian recalled the warm picture in his mind, and couldn't help but said, obviously it's still an incomparable nostalgia. Hee, that's natural. Back then we were the most famous couple in school. Betty put her arms around Tang Tian's neck and said in agreement. While they were flirting, Tang Tian felt a gaze that kept scanning him and Betty, and it seemed abnormal. Turning his head, Tang Tian found a sneaky white man wearing a peaked cap and sunglasses. He gently put down his glasses and looked at them in an intimate manner with a trace of pain on his expression. However, when he saw Tang Tian looking at him, the white man suddenly hid behind the big tree, not wanting them to find out. What's the matter, Tang Tian, what are you looking at? Betty was very curious and didn't know what Tang Tian was looking at, so she couldn't help asking him. It's nothing, just a familiar person. After Tang Tian said something inexplicable, he dragged Betty out, temporarily ignoring that mysterious person. Anyway, he had already fully understood the identity of the other person. Then, after Tang Tian left, this white man dressed like a paparazzi finally took off his glasses, revealing his true colors. Bruce Banner. Those who knew him called him that. For the first half of his life, he lived in glory almost all the time. He was called a genius physicist, a genius researcher of gamma-ray weapons, etc., with countless honors. However, one day an accident happened. The gamma-ray weapon had an accident, and I suffered a large dose of radiation from the gamma-ray weapon. Fortunately, he didn't die. Instead, he turned into a big green man and became a wanted criminal of the military. He has been hiding until now, and finally found Mr. Lan, so he has a solution to this problem. However, since he found a way, General Ross must find a way to stop them and give himself enough time, so he thought of Betty and wanted her to tell his father to temporarily stop his pursuit. Who knows, before Bruce finished his plan, he saw a scene that made him jealous, so he didn't go forward to explain his intention for the time being. Suddenly, when Bruce Banner was still thinking about life, there was a whistling sound behind him, which startled Bruce, and before he had time to dodge, a magnified leather shoe came into his sight. Boom! With a sound, Bruce was kicked and flew out. He just shook his head and looked up at the attacker's position, only to find that Tang Tian was holding Betty and watching him coldly. You shouldn't stare at my girlfriend, prepare to be punished now. Tang Tian clenched his fist, and couldn't help but knock Bruce to the ground with another punch, without giving him a chance to explain. And because of the angle, Betty couldn't see Bruce's face clearly, so she just felt that the other person was dressed strangely, so he shouldn't be a good person. What to do, Tang Tian? This guy is probably not a normal person. Do we need to send him to the police station? Betty looked at it seriously, and Tang Tian asked inquiringly. I don't know, let me ask his purpose. After Tang Tian said this, he grabbed Bruce by the collar, looked at him who was in a mess, and questioned him without hesitation. Who are you? Why are you looking at us? Tang Tian questioned and said, with a trace of murderous intent on his body. In an instant, looking at the extremely serious Tang Tian, Bruce took off his mask and hat, and stared at Betty beside him with helpless and depressed eyes. I'm sorry, Betty, to trouble you. I need you for business. Bruce looked very serious, not hiding anything, looked at Betty and said. Bruce Banner, how could it be you? I heard that you are wanted by the military. What is the reason? Betty was very surprised. He didn't expect to see Bruce when he went to school with his boyfriend, which really surprised him. Sorry, this is a long story, let me explain it in detail. After brewing his emotions for a while, Bruce told the ins and outs of why he was wanted, and told Betty that if her father ended the wanted order, he might return to normal. Hearing what Bruce said, Tang Tian didn't say much, but he showed a thoughtful expression. Obviously, as he guessed, the other party was Bruce Banner. However, the other party came to Betty for such a naive suggestion, which really made Tang Tian a little speechless. It was impossible for Betty alone to convince General Ross, and the other party was bound to win the Hulk. So, Bruce, you want me to help you stop my father? Betty understood Bruce's thoughts and guessed that he had such a possibility, so she couldn't help asking. Yes, can you help me? Bruce looked at Betty with a hopeful look, as if asking him for help. No need, the military's plan is not the family affection of crickets, it can be reversed. So you have found the wrong person, we are still busy, don't trouble us. Facing Bruce's request, Betty hadn't made a choice yet, but Tang Tian walked up to Bruce, pushed him away, and said expressionlessly. You. Knowing Tang Tian's resolute attitude and Betty's final shaking of his head, Bruce's face was also filled with a trace of despair. Oh, that's fine, I'm bothering you. Bruce's face was gloomy, and he finally left in despair. He didn't get the result he wanted, so he could only go to Mr. Lan and suppress Hulk's personality as much as possible. Tang Tian, is it really okay for us to do this? He was my former classmate. Betty felt a little unbearable and couldn't help asking him. Of course, we don't owe him anything. Besides, if you do this, your father will be unhappy, so you'd better not meddle in your own business. Tang Tian said seriously, reminding Betty. Besides, the task of the Hulk must be triggered, and Tang Tian is unwilling to have any changes, so stabilizing the current situation is the best choice. All right then, I'll listen to you. Betty finally nodded, obediently obeying Tang Tian's suggestion. The next day, at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun was still strong, and just as the bell rang for the end of get out of class, countless students started free activities, making the whole campus full of vitality. In such an atmosphere, Tang Tian held Betty's hand, walked aimlessly around the school, and started walking, taking a look at the scene of the whole school by the way. Tang Tian, is it really okay for us to do this? Isn't it a little bad to report Bruce's location to my father? Betty couldn't bear to ask, always feeling a little sorry for Bruce, thinking that they used to be classmates, so Betty couldn't convince herself. It's nothing, don't underestimate your father. Bruce's location has been known to him a long time ago, I just let him know by the way. Tang Tian shook his head and explained to the guilty Betty. Well, I hope Bruce has a more perfect ending. Betty didn't say much in the end, she stood quietly and regained her composure. Wu Ming. After walking for a while, outside the campus of Gaohua University, an air defense siren sounded suddenly, and 3 armed helicopters also attacked. Then, an army corps of about 300 people was scattered on both sides. In the middle area, about 1 T-type Terminator, mixed with several tanks, formed a silver-white steel torrent, and suddenly surrounded the whole school. It can be seen that General Ross is bound to win against the Hulk this time, and the purpose of sending so many troops is naturally to capture Bruce Banner and obtain the secrets in his genes. This is my father's preparation. Betty stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of her, her jaw dropped from shock, and she continued in an amazed tone, a troop of this size can fight a small war, my God, I don't know the school, how will it be destroyed? Hearing Betty's words, Tang Tian put his hand on Betty's shoulder, patted her lightly, and said to her comfortingly, don't worry, Betty, we'll just wait and see what happens. Anyway, if something happens, his father dealt with it reasonably. When Tang Tian and Betty were communicating, Bruce on one side had just arrived at the door of Mr. Lan's laboratory, and he suddenly ran towards the outside, not daring to stay where he was, lest Mr. Lan be caught. Because, Mr. Lan is the hope for him to return to normal. Bruce must not implicate him. He can only wait for the future to contact Mr. Lan to solve his physical problems. At this time, after the military made a strong appearance, the students who were scattered and playing nearby were immediately dispersed one by the soldiers under General Ross. Under the deterrent force of the military, these students left one after another. Only a few students who were not afraid of death secretly stood on the tall buildings and took pictures with cameras. At this time, after Tang Tian and Betty stood for a long time, 3 soldiers with rifles came over immediately, and aimed at Tang Tian and Betty with 3 black muzzles. Get out of here quickly, there will be a big battle here, please leave immediately. One of the soldiers couldn't help reminding, not looking like a joke. Dang. However, just as the 3 rifles were aimed at the 2 of them, a super strong magnetic field burst out suddenly. The soldier only felt his hand lighten, and the rifle fell to the ground. I hate when people point their guns at us, and immediately notified General Ross, saying that his partner Tang Tian and his daughter are here. Tang Tian said majestically, which made the 3 soldiers tremble with fear. Yes, after being reminded, the 3 soldiers who wanted to do something, looked at each other, and immediately ran to General Ross to report the situation here. At the same time, 2 soldiers were left to monitor their actions to prevent Tang Tian, who possessed mysterious power, from causing serious harm to their actions this time. In less than a minute, the soldier came back again, saluted Tang Tian, and said in a humble tone, I'm offended, Mr. Tang Tian, General Ross invites you to come in. After saying this, the soldiers began to lead the way. Tang Tian and Betty also followed behind the soldiers, heading towards General Ross's position. When he came here, Tang Tian found General Ross and began to use radar to lock on it. Countless T-1 Terminator had also been debugged and were ready to fight at any time. Dad, the scene is really spectacular. I think after today, the media in New York City will definitely report on what you did. I hope you don't go too far, or it won't end. Betty looked at General Ross, who was working with his head down, and said with concern. Hearing this, General Ross stopped what he was doing, looked at his daughter with a smile on his face, and explained in a very confident tone. Don't worry, Betty, the media in New York City will naturally not report indiscriminately. I have made sufficient preparations this time. General Ross was very confident. He didn't think this mission would fail, and looked at Tang Tian on the side. The confidence in his eyes was even stronger. Your Excellency, I didn't expect you to send all the Terminator troops. It really makes me feel admirable. In order to catch a Hulk, you have paid a lot of money. Tang Tian looked at the Terminator robot in front of him and said thoughtfully. Of course, the military needs stronger power. If we get his blood, then we will continue to cooperate. Because, I need a more powerful genetic enhancer. General Ross looked excited, and seemed to have made a decision. Okay, then it depends on the result of this battle. If necessary, I will choose to help. Tang Tian's expression remained unchanged. He turned his head to look at Bruce Banner, who was running away, thinking about when the mission might be triggered. Not far away, in a triangular air corridor connecting two buildings, Bruce ran here in a panic, but the soldiers who followed him completely blocked the place. Soon, the soldiers decisively released more than a dozen rounds of tear gas, causing the inside to become thick with smoke. They stood aside and waited quietly, preparing to go in and directly arrest the target after the tear gas dissipated. Roar! It's a pity that the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. When the smoke reached its thickest, a giant with a dark green body and a height of more than 3 meters appeared in front of their eyes, exuding an extremely arrogant aura. Ah, is this why you guys caught Bruce Banner? Betty's eyes were full of disbelief. She never expected that Bruce, who looked gentle and gentle, would turn into such a savage and big man. Yes, in order to protect the safety of this city, we must also catch him. General Ross said as a matter of course, watching the situation in front of him closely. Ding! Trigger the mission and defeat the Hulk. After the mission is completed, reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery. Almost instantly, the task of the lottery system of the heavens was triggered, and Tang Tian's calm face showed a trace of turmoil. Hee, have you finally started? Let me see, is it my kaleidoscope Sharingan that is better, or you, the big green guy? While Tang Tian was talking, the power of the chakra and thunderbolt fruit on his body had also been strengthened to the limit, and a battle was about to begin. California, Gold Coast University. Mr. Tang Tian, what do you think of my chances of winning this time? I have brought a lot of troops this time, as well as some sonic weapons. Together, we should be able to catch the Hulk. General Ross pointed to the monster that just ran out and was staring at his soldiers with a pair of angry green eyes, and asked with great confidence. I think the possibility of success is less than 30, Hulk. It's not that easy to deal with. If you underestimate him, you may pay a huge price. Tang Tian shook his head, looked closely at the situation in front of him, made his own evaluation, and didn't say much. You know, the reason why the Hulk is so powerful is that through the power provided by infinite anger, the Hulk can continue to become stronger. In theory, there is no upper limit, so whether the Terminator Legion can defeat the Hulk, this is entirely to say not allowed. At this time, the angry Hulk started to move, and his green eyes were full of destructive desire. Stimulated by the anger, the Hulk rushed to the position of General Ross's army like a tank. Da 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 da. At the same time, 200 Terminator robots released a crossfire net when the Hulk was running, and the dense bullets hit the Hulk hard like a rainstorm. However, instead of hurting the Hulk, the high-caliber bullet was bounced off of the Hulk's tough skin, causing him no serious damage. Ho ho ho. Facing the attack of the Terminator Legion, the Hulk was beaten back again and again, and his body was like a lone boat being beaten by huge waves, as if he could no longer hold on. Unexpectedly, in the face of such an intense attack, the hatred in Hulk's eyes became even stronger. In their shocked eyes, Hulk put his hands on the ground, and with a sudden force, he flew into the sky like a flea in the middle, temporarily dodged the bullet. Bully Hulk. Hulk wants to tear down these toys. After being beaten into a dog by the Terminator robot, the Hulk became furious again, jumped down from the air, crushed 2 Terminator robots with his feet, punched another Terminator, and the robot was scrapped. How can that be? General Ross was dumbfounded, watching the Hulk disassemble the Terminator robot. He was already shocked and speechless, and stood there blankly. This is normal. Looking at General Ross, Tang Tian shook his head. He didn't feel sad at all for the loss of the Terminator Legion. Anyway, these robots were used for testing, and he didn't feel bad about losing too much. For a while, after the Hulk's smashing, the Terminator Legion was already in disarray. In less than 10 minutes, the entire army of 1T-type Terminator robots had been wiped out. Quick, use a sonic weapon to stop that guy's actions. Seeing the defeat of the army, General Ross's face was gloomy, and his mood became a little uncomfortable, and he ordered the soldiers to start action. Hearing General Ross's order, several horn-like devices on the tanks in the rear were placed on them, and a circle of ultrasonic waves suddenly spread out. Suffering from the ultrasound, the Hulk was extremely uncomfortable covering his ears, the anger in his eyes increased again, and the gamma-ray cells all over his body began to swell. Immediately afterwards, the Hulk's height increased by 1 meter again, and his dark green eyes also burned with more intense anger, as if it could swallow the entire world. In less than 3 seconds, the Hulk arrived in front of these tanks at an even faster speed, dismantling the main battle tank to pieces like tearing apart a toy. "Hey, it seems that Your Excellency, you have failed in this search and arrest operation. Do you need my help?" Tang Tian stared at General Ross, opened Sharingan, and asked thoughtfully. "No, I still have the last hole card. Please let me try again." Hearing Tang Tian's words, General Ross shook his head, turned his head, looked at Bronsky in front of him, and gave him an order. "Bronsky is here for you. Let me see if your enhanced super soldier serum can reach the level of Captain America." General Ross said sternly, and Bronsky didn't hesitate, took out a grenade gun, and walked out unhurriedly. When he came to Hulk's side, Bronsky kept pressing the howitzer, and countless howitzers hit the Hulk's head fiercely, causing the Hulk to retreat again and again. Interesting. Looking at Bronsky's methods, Tang Tian still admired him very much. He could suppress the Hulk just by relying on the incomplete super soldier serum. It seems that the scientific research level of the military should not be underestimated. After fighting several times, the Hulk was completely angry. He waved his fist the size of a sandbag and slammed into Bronsky again and again, but he avoided them perfectly. Taking advantage of the gap between the Hulk's attack, Bronsky jumped, and a flying kick landed on the Hulk's face hard, knocking his face out of the way. "Hey, is that all you have? HMPH, you don't deserve such godlike power." After easily causing a lot of trouble to the Hulk, Bronsky looked at the Hulk proudly, then drew his pistol, intending to shoot him in the eyes. Roar! In an instant, facing the damage caused by the little ant, the Hulk roared wildly, and his two fists intertwined together, terrifying gamma-ray energy also surfaced on his body surface. Hulk is angry, hit hard. When the anger was aroused to the maximum, the Hulk's fists collided together, and a strong shock wave was suddenly released, forming a powerful shock wave that spread like water ripples. Bronsky, who was the first to bear the brunt, was naturally blown away and spit out a mouthful of blood. Before he could react, a pair of big green feet stepped on his head, and stepped on him more than a dozen times in a row. Afterwards, the super shock wave did not slow down, and the soldiers sent by General Ross vomited blood and fell down one after another, completely losing their fighting power. Oops! Seeing such a terrifying shock wave, the faces of General Ross and Betty changed, and they closed their eyes in despair. Suddenly, when General Ross was facing despair, Tang Tian walked over and patted him on the shoulder, looked at his cheap father-in-law with a smile, and said in a relaxed tone, "Father-in-law, leave it to me now. Only I am able to deal with this guy." Tang Tian gave General Ross a reassuring look, and his eyes instantly turned into kaleidoscope Sharingan, and a super powerful force was suddenly released. Susano. Unsurprisingly, the sky blue Susano appeared instantly, and the 8-foot mirror was lifted slightly, and the shock wave generated by the Hulk was completely cancelled out, causing no harm to General Ross and Betty. "It's incredible." General Ross looked at the shock wave and was directly stopped by the sky blue energy phantom. There was also a hint of surprise in his eyes. For the first time, he saw the power of his cheap son-in-law. It can be seen that his son-in-law, in addition to his astonishing power, seems to have an extremely powerful and desperate strength, which also made General Ross feel an unparalleled shock. After resisting the Hulk's blow, Tang Tian looked towards the Hulk, only to find that Blonsky had been beaten beyond human form, and fell into a big pit. He didn't know if he was dead or not. However, the Hulk still maintained an angry expression, as if he hadn't fully vented his anger, and was looking at Tang Tian and General Ross in front of him with a fierce look. Hate. Hulk hates so much. These little ants were very merciless in their shots, which also gave the Hulk a strong desire to destroy and wanted to bury them all, so he walked step by step, preparing to continue to complete his revenge. Hulk, I think you should go back, otherwise with your strength, you will never be able to defeat me. Looking at the approaching Hulk, Tang Tian calmly reminded that it was a warning to the Hulk. If he didn't know how to accept it when he was good, then don't blame Tang Tian. Little ant. Hearing Tang Tian's words, the Hulk didn't stop in the slightest. Instead, he uttered these 3 words angrily. With both feet exerting force, he fell down like Mount Tai. No, Tang Tian, quickly avoid it. Betty on the side reminded nervously that she didn't want her boyfriend to get hurt. Hearing this, Tang Tian smiled relaxedly at Betty. Without further explanation, a mass of terrifying lightning gathered in his hands on the sky blue Susanoo. This is the power of the thunderous fruit. Thunder. In less than 3 seconds, a ball of lightning flew out quickly, smashing the Hulk into the sky again, and flying a distance of more than 10 meters into the sky again. Originally, the Hulk wanted to use the gravitational potential energy of the high-speed fall to teach Tang Tian a harsh lesson and smash the condensed Susanoo, but unexpectedly, the Hulk was shot into the sky again before implementing the plan. Because, unable to borrow strength in midair, the Hulk fell miserably again, and fell heavily to the ground, smashing the ground out of a deep pit. Oh, God! General Ross on one side, at this time, has turned into a melon-eating crowd. His eyes are full of shock and disbelief. Seeing the Hulk who was easily blown away, his evaluation of Tang Tian is even higher. After all, the Hulk, who was able to beat the Terminator Legion and the Infantry Regiment, was easily dealt with by Tang Tian, which was enough to show that his strength was far stronger than the Hulk. This is my man. Compared to General Ross's shock, Betty's face was full of joy, and she felt unparalleled pride in having Tang Tian as her boyfriend. On the other side, the Hulk who fell into the deep pit stretched out a green hand, and climbed out of the deep pit again. After being covered in mud, he looked extraordinarily embarrassed and funny. Hee, Hulk, do you still want to fight? You are doomed to fail in this battle, you are not my opponent. Tang Tian stared at the Hulk, provocative again, wanting to see what kind of strength this guy has. Roar. Sure enough, in the face of Tang Tian's provocation, the Hulk couldn't control his anger again, and rushed over recklessly, avoiding flying into the sky again like before. This time, facing the Hulk's attack, Tang Tian still didn't move at all, and collided head-on with the Hulk. When the Hulk raised his fist and smashed it, Tang Tian didn't give in at all, and counterattacked with a backhand punch. For a moment, the green fist collided with Susanoo, and another horrible chaos was set off. Shock wave. In the first fight, the Hulk was knocked back a few steps by Susanoo's powerful force. When a huge force poured into his body, the Hulk suddenly spat out a mouthful of Hulk's blood. However, even though he was already injured, the Hulk still didn't back down. He fought Tang Tian with dozens of moves in a row, but he failed to win every move, and he vomited blood every time he was beaten by Tang Tian. Fortunately, the cells of gamma rays are strong enough. Even though they look like lizardmen or predators, they have already been knocked over by his 2 punches, and it is impossible for them to be alive and kicking like they are now. After fighting for a while, Hulk's strength was strengthened again, which also put Susanoo under great pressure. The Hulk, who had gone through several battles, cleverly dodged to avoid the 10-fist sword in Tang Tian's hand, and hit Susanoo on the back with a sudden force. Crack. The weakest Susanoo's back was punched by the Hulk at the weakest defensive position, opening a large mouth. However, before the Hulk was happy, Susanoo, who had a crack, returned to its original state again, making the Hulk's face pale, and he could only attack desperately again. Immediately afterwards, knowing that if this continued, the battle would become endless, Tang Tian didn't hesitate at all, and manipulated Susanoo to grab Hulk and lift him up to his eyes. Roar. Feeling Susanoo's huge strength, the Hulk struggled hard, but to no avail. He did not break free from the shackles. Seeing that the Hulk couldn't break free for the time being, Tang Tian smiled contemptuously, and aimed at the Hulk with the kaleidoscope Sharingan to cast the strongest illusion. Except, you do. In an instant, the Hulk only felt that he was in a blood-red space, and tens of thousands of Tang Tian who had activated Susanoo appeared in front of him, looking at him with cold eyes. Welcome here, Hulk, come to my world. in the next 48 hours, I will let you experience what fear is. Tang Tian smiled unexpectedly, and countless Susanos started a group fight against the Hulk. Within a minute, there was the scream of the Hulk, and the roar of countless fists. Obviously, in Yueju's world, the Hulk couldn't resist at all, and his strength was completely weakened. He could only let Tang Tian teach him a lesson like a slaughtered pig. In the real world, General Ross saw the moment Tang Tian grabbed the Hulk. The green monster actually stopped moving, and its body gradually shrunk, returning to its original appearance of Bruce Banner. Phew, it's finally solved. Fortunately, I have the strongest illusion, otherwise it will be troublesome. After cleaning up the Hulk, Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief, and smiled softly to General Ross beside him. Thank you, Mr. Tang Tian. Did you really help me a lot? Looking at the scene in front of him, General Ross was extremely happy, and at the same time ordered his soldiers to surround Bruce Banner, preparing to collect the spoils this time. No, I didn't help much, but your eyes should be quicker, otherwise, the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. might intervene. Tang Tian shook his head, reminding him sensibly that he hoped that General Ross would speed up his research and get what he wanted. Well, I understand. Leave the rest to me directly. General Ross nodded. For him, even if the people from S.H.I.E.L.D. want to come here to get someone, they have to pass his test first, otherwise the military will never let go without enough benefits. Very well, that's it for me. Goodbye, General Ross. Maybe we will have a chance to meet next time. Tang Tian smiled slightly, turned around and left with Betty. Ding! The task of defeating the Hulk has been completed, and the reward speed is a chance to draw a lottery. Almost at the moment of leaving, a systematic reminder appeared in Tang Tian's mind, which also indicated that he had won a total of 5 lucky draw opportunities. In this way, after the 5 consecutive draws, Tang Tian's strength will definitely become stronger, and it is no problem to reach the strength of the shadow level. 3 days later, the Hulk was caught by General Ross as expected, and sent to the military laboratory to start research on super soldiers. During this period, S.H.I.E.L.D. called Tang Tian, hoping that he could contact General Ross and release the Hulk. Tang Tian had no objection to this at all, and after greeting General Ross also made an appointment to meet him, looking for a suitable time to meet. In the end, Tang Tian chose to have this meeting at General Ross's base. By the way, he had a look at this well-known military general and asked what he could do. At this time, New York City, a military base. In the headquarters, General Ross was wearing a military uniform. With an admiring gaze, he saw Tang Tian clearly in front of him, and he was in a very good mood. In the past few days, they have drawn the Hulk's blood, conducted careful research, and have made many breakthroughs. If it weren't for Tang Tian's help, it would be almost impossible to obtain such an advantage now. Young man, thanks to you this time, otherwise, the military would want to capture that big green guy. I don't know how much it will cost. General Ross spoke sincerely. Thinking of the Hulk's destructive power, he still felt a little lingering in his heart. Fortunately, Tang Tian solved this problem in the end, otherwise it would be another great shame for the military. Hearing what General Ross said, the corners of Tang Tian's mouth slightly raised, revealing such an expression. General Ross, you're welcome, we were originally meant to help each other. It's not a problem to help you catch this big green guy. Oh, so young man, what reward do you want to get? I decided to give you the rank of colonel. I wonder if you are interested. General Ross sensed Tang Tian's pushback, and couldn't help but look at him seriously, knowing that what he got, he had to pay for, so he stared at Tang Tian in front of him, wanting to see what benefits the other party wanted. Of course, the rank of colonel is just a test, to test Tang Tian's appetite. If the other party has a big appetite, then it is not a mere rank of colonel, which can be easily compensated. I accept the rank of colonel. In addition, I hope to win more business for Osborne Industries. I hope you can agree to my request. I don't think this should be a big problem for Your Excellency the General, right? Tang Tian thought for a while, accepted the benefits of General Ross, and invested in Osborne Industries by the way, which would not do any harm to strengthening his power. Moreover, Tang Tian's current power is in the growth stage, and strengthening his own strength by any means is what he needs to do most at the moment. Very well, within 3 days, I will follow your request. If the military needs it in the future, please come and help. General Ross nodded, and he did not object to this transaction at all. Anyway, it is not too difficult for him. It is the right choice to do this well. Maybe, when researching the Hulk's gene, there will be new monsters, so Tang Tian will be able to solve the trouble next time. Afterwards, the transaction ended smoothly. Tang Tian got what he wanted, and General Ross also got great benefits. The two parted ways in the form of having a good time. Not long after, Tang Tian returned to the villa in his own private car, quickly closed the door, and asked Deadpool to guard the villa to prevent anyone from breaking in suddenly. This time, the reason why he made such sufficient preparations was for the 5 consecutive draws. Through her continuous efforts, he won a total of 5 draws, so he must be prepared to prevent anyone from discovering his secret. After getting ready, Tang Tian closed his eyes, and communicated with the system in his mind. System, use up all 5 lucky draw chances, and start the lucky draw. After finishing speaking, he waited for the system's response that day, with an expression of expectation in his eyes, waiting for a new round of strengthening. Ding! The request is accepted, and the countdown to the lottery draw begins. 3, 2, 1. In an instant, Tang Tian's consciousness changed, and he reappeared in the different dimensional space he had dreamed of, stepping on the abyss, and there was no fear on his face, but a strong excitement. Unsurprisingly, there was a turntable above his head, on which were written 4 item areas, namely skills, bloodlines, characters, and props. Each area was listed in detail, and the things that could be obtained. Let Tang Tian there was a burst of excitement. Almost as soon as his consciousness descended into this space, the huge turntable started to spin, and soon landed in the props area. Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the World Item Experience card, Super Body. The host can enter this world at any time and obtain valuable things. After being reminded by the system, Tang Tian still had a smile on his face. The good things he got from this World Experience card are obvious, and that is the potion for becoming a god. However, with Tang Tian's current strength, he can't take that potion for the time being. He can only wait for a while, and when his strength reaches a certain level, he can have stronger strength. However, the system didn't wait for Tang Tian to continue to be excited, and started to rotate again, and finally fell into the bloodline area twice, and sent 2 sounds of nature by mistake. Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Naruto World Item, Samsara Eye, Left Eye. Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Naruto World Item, the Book of Seals. The host can learn and obtain various advanced ninjutsu. The Eye of Reincarnation, the sealed book. Tang Tian was very surprised. He didn't expect that he was possessed by the Emperor of Europe again, and he extracted and stole such a precious thing. He originally thought that a world experience card was already very remarkable, but he didn't expect that what he got now was even more precious than he thought. It's just that only one Eye of Reincarnation was drawn, but it was very broken, and he couldn't let his strength increase too much at once, which also made him very speechless. Next, the last 2 lucky draw opportunities pointed to the item area. Tang Tian got a nuclear bomb and a plain world experience card respectively, allowing him to live in the world of The Adventures of Jackie Chan for a year. After 5 consecutive draws, Tang Tian's mood could not be calm for a long time, and at the end of the lottery draw, a warm current melted into Tang Tian's eyes, making him feel very comfortable. What I have to say is that Tang Tian took advantage of this time and obtained unpredictable benefits. With these things, he will become stronger, and I believe his strength will also be continuously enhanced. Hehe, I finally know that as long as you make troubles, you will continue to become stronger. Wait, hate, you are still valuable. In the mirror of the villa, one of Tang Tian's eyes turned into the shape of blue water ripples, exuding an incomparable terrifying coercion. Obviously it is not that simple, but the strength and all aspects have reached the limit level. It can be said that Tang Tian's current level is already at the pinnacle of the Shadow Quest level, infinitely close to the Shadow level. The next time the Hulk encounters him, it is possible that he will hit his head full of bags. Having just won 5 lucky draw items, Tang Tian's strength has also been enhanced to the limit, and then he will start his own layout, make good use of the abomination, and let him dedicate himself, which can be regarded as radiant and hot. A week later, at the gate of the military base, Bruce Banner walked out in a trance, looking at the black stewed egg director in front of him, Nick Fury, with very complicated eyes. A few days ago, he was still in the research laboratory of the military. He was tortured and injected with a large amount of sedatives. He thought that life was hopeless, but he did not expect that the appearance of S.H.I.E.L.D. brought him a new life, bright. How is it, Bruce, how are you feeling? Are you feeling better? Our S.H.I.E.L.D. in the military has settled down, please rest assured. Director Nick patted Bruce on the shoulder and said to him comfortingly. Thank you, take me back. I want to find a place to live quietly, and I don't want to be disturbed like this. You can promise me that I can help you do things within a certain range. How could Bruce Banner not know the truth that he must pay for what he got? He knew that he owed a lot to S.H.I.E.L.D. this time, and he had to work harder to repay it. Very good, if you can think this way, we can rest assured. By the way, we have already obtained the medicine that can inhibit your gamma-ray cells. You can inject it directly when you get in the car. This is right for you. Others are good too, aren't they? Director Nick naturally doesn't want Bruce Banner to make trouble again, so it may be the best idea to seal his other side. On the other side, in the hospital where Bronski was lying, after 3 days of recovery, Bronski finally recovered, and his physical condition was unprecedentedly good. If it weren't for the help of the remaining super soldier serum in his body, Bronski might not be able to recover easily, and it would be normal for him to be killed by the Hulk on the spot. Suddenly, just as Bronski was about to get up, a military soldier walked up to him, saluted him, and told a news that shocked her. Sir, Mr. Tang Tian's subordinate, Deadpool, has requested to come to you. It seems that there is something important to talk to you. Excuse me, sir, do you have time? The soldier stared at Bronski, said these words, and waited for his commander's order. What is he doing here? Bronski was very surprised. Of course he knew who Deadpool was, and he was also Tang Tian's personal bodyguard, but it was very strange that this guy came to him suddenly. However, Bronski also knew that he couldn't figure out why, so he waved his hand and signaled the other party to bring Deadpool in. 3 minutes later, Deadpool came to Bronski with a frivolous face, and looked at him left and right, as if looking at a rare treasure. Why are you looking for me? You should know that I'm very busy. If you have nothing to do, it's best not to look for me. Bronski frowned, and went straight to the point, wanting to find out the other party's purpose. Only when he told his purpose, Bronski could rest assured. Do you want to become stronger? I have a way here. According to my boss's prompt, I can take you to the ladder leading to the realm of God. Deadpool is equally undramatic, looking at Bronski meaningfully, as if patting him in the face and saying, I've got a Hulk potion here. Single quote. Really, you know where this potion is? With a look of excitement on his face, Bronski grabbed Deadpool's shoulders, wanting to get what he wanted from him. After all, it is impossible for General Ross to casually approve the use of the Hulk's blood before he has studied it thoroughly. This is also an indispensable method. Of course, if you are willing to follow me, you will gain unprecedented power. Deadpool smiled mysteriously, and didn't say much, and the meaning was obvious. Then, the two of them came to the entrance of Gaohua University again in the car and opened the door. Bronski was very surprised and did not expect to have the opportunity to revisit the old place. It's this annoying place again. Although it makes me very unhappy, since you invited me here, I believe there must be a reason for you. Bronski sighed, and didn't talk to him at this time. Instead, he led him to Mr. Land's laboratory and ran faster. He knocked on the door smoothly, and after entering the laboratory, Mr. Land was not surprised at all. Looking at the Deadpool in front of him, he thought of the deposit he had received before, so it was not surprising to look at Bronski. Mr. Deadpool, what do you need me to do? Dr. Stane stared at Deadpool and asked respectfully. Under the attack of the dollar, Dr. Stane finally chose to give in. Inject Hulk's blood into Mr. Bronski. In addition, take out the mutant blood I prepared in advance and prepare to inject it into him. Deadpool didn't talk nonsense, so he gave orders to Dr. Stane. Wait, mutant blood. Bronski was very surprised. As a non-commissioned officer in the military, he also has his own understanding of mutants. He didn't expect that Deadpool could even get this thing. Obviously, this matter had been planned in detail by Tang Tian, which made him feel completely unexpected. Yes, you will definitely not be disappointed. It contains a lot of genes. There are Colossus, Iceman, Pyroman, and the power of Cyclops, which I barely obtained through the black market collection. Deadpool replied confidently. Bronski's eyes are getting brighter and brighter. The Hulk's blood is already strong enough, but he didn't expect to let these bloods gather together. The combined power is definitely not 1 + 1. So simple. After Deadpool finished explaining, Bronski couldn't wait to lie on the hospital bed. Under the operation of Dr. Stane, the 5 needles pierced into her body in an instant, and these mixed medicines were injected in an instant. Then, these types of genes were mixed together, and a terrifying reaction appeared. Blonsky expanded rapidly as if he had been inflated, and the shackles tied to his body were also directly broken. Even, an extremely strong gamma-ray energy emerged from his body, and even his clothes were torn into strips, like a beggar's clothes, gradually unable to cover him. His whole body was full of strong muscles. In just a few seconds, Blonsky expanded continuously from the original tough guy of more than 1 meter, and gradually broke through the laboratory, and the height was continuously expanded, making it difficult for them to reach the height of. Of course, Deadpool didn't back down at all due to the strong physical changes produced by Bronski, and he used his teleportation to take Dr. Stane away from the lab that was about to collapse. Leaving this laboratory, Dr. Stane's eyes were full of excitement, as well as strong excitement, as if he felt that he had encountered a good thing. Successful, finally successful. The X gene in Hulk's blood finally have an experimental body that can be fused. Thanks to the boss for his trust. Dr. Stane looked at his lab that had been turned into ruins. He didn't feel distressed at all, but still had a strong sense of pride. Half an hour ago, he heard Deadpool's request, and he couldn't believe it at all, but now that this experiment has really happened, Dr. Stane feels very excited. Okay, don't talk anymore, leave with me, let's go to see the boss directly. He will arrange the following things. After finishing speaking, Deadpool took Dr. Stane and left. Since he knew that it was not suitable to stay here for a long time, there was no need for him to stay here. Not far away, Bronski's body was undergoing terrible changes. The loathsome body continued to grow until it reached a height of nearly 4 meters before finally stopping. The frightening thing is that the abomination that Bronski turned into is even more terrifying than the original book. After being mixed with mutant genes, the abomination's strength in all aspects has reached the top level. It also has spikes all over its body and burning orchids flames. Great, this is the power of a god. With this power, I can twist everything. I want to become the god of this world. Bronski felt his whole body was full of strength, and clenched his fist slightly. A powerful energy appeared in his body, and when he was full of strength, he punched the building. Boom! Including Bronski's powerful blow, the wall in front of him was actually smashed into pieces, scattered into countless fragments, and fell to the ground. Even the ground began to shake under the traction of the strengthened force. After Bronski gained unrivaled strength, he began to destroy wildly. As soon as he entered the street, the scattered cars were punched by him, and the destruction began unscrupulously. What followed was that when the soldiers of the military got the news, they hurriedly dispatched troops to stop the monster and resolve the huge crisis in front of them. Immediately afterwards, fierce battles began from now on. The nearby soldiers were fully fired, trying to stop this monster like the Hulk, but even if the military used all their strength, it was still impossible to shake this monster. 3 minutes later, there were ruins everywhere, and more than a dozen burning armored vehicles were tragically placed aside in this way, showing the heroic resistance of the soldiers. At this time, after the military troops were completely annihilated, the police detectives who rushed over saw this monster so fiercely, they naturally drove straight away and left this place. Ha ha ha, I am invincible, just wait. Hulk, I will find you soon. Bronski had a stern look on his face, and he got god-level power, so he naturally didn't mind, and trampled the Hulk under his feet, making himself unique. After thinking for a while, Bronski opened up his full firepower, stretched out a hand full of spikes, grabbed the glass at once, and climbed up the rock, like a monkey, and began to jump over one building after another. Taking advantage of the super-fast speed, even here, there is still a long distance from New York City, which may not be too much trouble in the eyes of Bronski. Sure enough, while the monster was constantly moving, New York City also got news. George Stacey also set up a line of defense, intending to use the method of defending against the Lizardman last time to fight against the trouble in front of him. Who knows, Bronski didn't even look at the line of defense in front of him, instead he walked step by step, looking at George with a sneer. Get out of the way quickly, don't let me say too much, otherwise, it is very possible for me to completely destroy it. Bronski waved his hand impatiently, and looked at George like chasing flies, which was considered a face for this human being. What kind of monster are you? I'm in California, and I don't even know your origin. I didn't expect you to come here. George questioned and said that he wanted to know the details of this monster. I am a god, not a monster. From now on, I have the final say on the whole world. I am the strongest person in this world. Bronski sneered, and directly raised his spiked palm, and an energy ball composed of gamma rays and flame energy appeared in his hand. Looking at it from a distance, he could sense a strong destructive force, enough to destroy the world, which made George feel like his heart was jumping. When he faced the Lizardman last time, he didn't have this kind of power. The feeling made George also feel a sense of fear. With a sound of whoosh, the fused energy ball suddenly exploded, and the intense flames produced directly blasted the police car into a ball of fire. Even the cars along the street were not in a good condition. They exploded under this powerful energy one after another, dyeing the surroundings into a sea of flames, and the entire street was completely destroyed. At the critical moment, a figure rippling with spider silk appeared, and when the explosion was about to hit George, he took him directly away from this dangerous place. Peter, you came just in time, hurry up and stop this monster. Otherwise, this guy will turn the whole New York City into ruins. George said nervously that he wanted Spider-Man to solve this problem and completely suppress Bronski. I understand, but that guy is really too strong, and I may not be able to defeat him easily. Spider-Man looked embarrassed. He had seen the strength of this monster in a far place just now, so he was extremely surprised in his heart. He never expected to meet such a monster. Well, just do your best, you just need to contain him. Just wait for other superheroes to qualify. I also believe that in the face of such a crisis, someone will always appear, that is, the hero of our world, the same will appear in front of us. George also knew that the other party was very powerful, so in the end he didn't force Spider-Man too much, and could only quietly wait for the appearance of the superhero. Otherwise, this is not a simple problem that the police and the army can handle. Only by relying on the strength of superheroes can the worst situation in front of us be resolved. When Bronski was causing severe damage, Tang Tian already knew everything, but he didn't take action directly. Instead, he stared at the monitoring screen with great interest, watching Bronski show off his power. It looks like the smile is getting stronger. Controlling everything from behind, Tang Tian felt extremely happy. In order to trigger the mission, what's the point of destroying a mere block? Boss, you played really well this time. I didn't expect to cultivate such a monster indirectly. Deadpool looked at his boss with admiration, and said in a little surprise. Hee, it's natural, don't you think that life doesn't have much fun? Now let me add a little bit of fun to it. Now let the scene officially begin. With a calm expression on Tang Tian's face, he continued to look at the scene in front of him, thinking about when to make a move in order to obtain the greatest benefit. At this moment, Tang Tian has been developing more and more on the path of supervillain. I believe that he will be able to become the strongest villain in a short time. New York City, Manhattan, on the street. Facing the huge and powerful Bronski, Spider-Man can only use his flexible speed to constantly dodge his attacks and contain the enemy in front of him. George on the side, seeing Spider-Man struggling to deal with it, quickly called the military, contacted General Ross, and asked for the other side's support. After getting an affirmative answer, George finally breathed a sigh of relief, with a slightly relaxed expression in his eyes. He also understood that relying on his own strength to resolve the crisis in front of him was absolutely impossible. So, aside from relying on superheroes, the power of the military still matters, and that's something he can't get away with. Sure enough, after General Ross was notified, a heavily armed infantry regiment, after receiving General Ross's transfer order, immediately drove an armored convoy and rushed here, stopping Bronski's advance again. God, what kind of monster is this? The leading soldier was shocked, but quickly realized that the machine guns on more than a dozen armored vehicles were completely aimed at the monster, and began to fire indiscriminately. Da da da. When the dense bullets hit Bronski, they couldn't even penetrate his skin. Instead, they were easily bounced off by his tough skin. However, even if it couldn't hurt Bronski, that is to say, the abomination completely aroused the anger of the abomination, so the abomination grabbed an armored vehicle almost without hesitation, and threw it at other armored vehicles like a shell. In an instant, this armored vehicle collided with two other armored vehicles, and exploded again, turning into a mass of scrap iron. It also made the surrounding soldiers understand how disgusting it was, and it was not easy for ordinary people to deal with. Use the howitzer to bomb now. The leading soldier saw that the enemy in front of him was difficult to deal with, so he asked the soldiers to replace the howitzers with other howitzers, wanting to bombard the hatred in front of them fiercely and resolve the crisis in front of them. However, when the dense howitzers bombarded Abomination, after a burst of gunpowder smoke cleared, Abomination appeared in the smoke unscathed, with a sneer on his ferocious face, looking at the ants with a look this group of soldiers. Now, the Abomination has plenty of confidence to come as many enemies as he could directly kill. With his absolute strength, she could kill as many soldiers as she wanted. At this time, on a small Quinjet fighter jet, Bruce Banner stared dumbfounded at the loathing in front of him. He was very shocked. He never thought that a big guy like himself would be born. Almost when he was looking at these soldiers, the Abomination was still chasing and killing those soldiers. The slow-moving armored vehicles were directly torn in half by him, and the densely packed soldiers were directly killed by him with one step on them. Quite a lot. Suddenly, when Abomination continued to kill those military soldiers, a few strands of spider silk entangled his arms, not even letting go of the soles of his feet. The dense entanglement temporarily controlled Abomination's actions. Man, stop it. If you continue like this, you will offend all superheroes, and I don't want to collect your body for you. Spider-Man reminded rationally, desperately using all his strength to control the actions of the Abomination, to prevent him from doing many more evil things. Roll. Facing Spider-Man's persuasion, an angry expression appeared on Hate's face, and he cursed. The spider silk on his body was broken directly, and Spider-Man was also thrown out. What can I do? Such a monster is not an ordinary force and can be resisted. It's a pity that the Hulk on my body is asleep, otherwise I will definitely have a way to solve this problem. Bruce Banner was dumbfounded, seeing Nick Fury, a black brine egg beside him, and asked helplessly. Oh, don't worry, I've got Iron Man to help. He won't be long, hope he can control the situation. Nick Fury's expression is still very calm, and he has not broken through his bottom line, so he still has a chance to improve. At this time, Spider-Man came to stop the Abomination again, desperately throwing all kinds of cars, trying to stop the Abomination's footsteps, which provoked the Abomination, completely furious. Little bug, die for me. Roaring in hatred and anger, a cloud of azure blue energy appeared in his hand. Without even thinking about it, he threw it in the direction of Spider-Man. Oops. Looking at the energy passing by at high speed, Spider-Man's eyes showed a trace of panic, but before he could dodge, the energy ball exploded. In an instant, Spider-Man, who didn't react in a hurry, was directly overturned, and powerful energy and shock waves scattered in all directions, making this place ablaze again. HMPH, this is the fate of offending me. Anyone who dares to offend me will die. Hate was very proud, and Spider-Man was easily dealt with by himself. He felt that superheroes were nothing more than that, so he became more determined about the goal of dominating the world. Then, just as the Abomination was about to reach the center of New York City, a golden red figure suddenly appeared in front of the Abomination, and several miniature missiles were able to pass by. On the body of the Loathing, after helping to light the fire again, he walked over intact and looked at the figure in the sky with an extremely angry expression. Hey, big guy, don't mess around here in New York City. Otherwise, you're waiting for the fate of being behind bars. With a sullen face, Tony stared at the hatred in front of him, and said without worrying at all. Ahem, Mr. Tony, this guy is very strong, so you must be careful. Even I can't avoid his attack. I hope you can be more careful, Mr. Tony. Spider-Man on one side climbed up from the ruins, and reminded Iron Man not far away that he didn't want this famous superhero to capsize here. Haha, Don't worry, I'm Iron Man, a superhero in this world, just a big guy, I can easily solve it. Iron Man was extremely excited, and had already made plans to fight this enemy. After saying this, Iron Man turned into an afterimage, and more than a dozen particle cannons struck again, but the abomination didn't even hide, and instead calmly withstood Tony's attack. Sir, according to the test, this monster can easily withstand any level of energy cannon, and there is a thin layer of energy protection on his body, so we can't effectively damage him. Jarvis reminded Tony, but Tony still didn't change his attack method, and cooperated with particle cannon and micro missiles to bombard the abomination in front of him indiscriminately. Little Ant, seeing Iron Man's non-stop attacks, Hate also got a little angry, smashed the ground with a punch, picked up a block of cement, and threw it at Iron Man in the sky. Seeing that Iron Man was in trouble, Spider-Man naturally wouldn't sit still, and used the spider silk to throw all the objects he could see over, blocking the attack of the abomination again. This monster is too strong, there may be no other way except to use this trump card. After realizing that his attack was completely ineffective, Iron Man also felt ruthless, mobilized all the energy on his legs, and rushed to the front of the abomination again at a speed more than 3 times faster than before. Jarvis, cut me. When he came in front of Abomination, Iron Man clasped his armor together, and a red laser shot across the throat of Abomination. Abomination only felt a pain in his neck, and a blood mark appeared, but under the laser cutting again, the wound became extremely black, exuding a smell like roasted meat. What? Suffering such a severe injury, the Hatred let out a scream, and the anger in his heart was getting bigger and bigger. Terrible high-temperature flames burned on his body, and even his eyes changed. Tony heaved a sigh of relief, and just as he seriously injured the monster and was about to avoid it, 2 laser beams hit Iron Man's armor hard. Unsurprisingly, Iron Man was directly blasted out by the huge impact force, and fell hard to the ground. The armor damage rate is 30%, sir, please dodge the attack immediately. When the Hatred aroused the power of Cyclops, Iron Man was obviously blown away, and felt that his whole body was about to fall apart. Before Iron Man could react, the abomination accelerated again, grabbed Iron Man's hand, and scrambled around like a windmill. Wherever it went, buildings were directly smashed through, and even cars on the street were smashed, fire everywhere. In the end, after I don't know how many times I dumped Iron Man, the Hatred was relieved, and without thinking about it, he threw him into a building and let out a fierce breath. Mr. Tony. Looking at the thrilling scene, Spider-Man pounced on the Hatred again, trying to stop his actions. However, Hatred is not easy to provoke, and he punched Spider-Man fiercely. This time, Spider-Man was unlucky, he was hit directly, fell to the ground, and blood continued to overflow from his body. Ha ha ha, I am the strongest superhero, and I am definitely not my opponent. Even if this big guy appears again, I will definitely be the final winner. The madness on the face of Hatred, and at the same time gains superhuman strength, the ambition of Hatred has swelled to an unbelievable level. He longs to have the dominance of this world, so as to become the king of this world. At the same time, Bruce Banner on the fighter jet also seemed to have made preparations. When he saw Director Nick, the black brine egg beside him, he said his thoughts straight to the point. Mr. Nick, please let me solve this problem. This matter is a monster created by my blood, so please let me deal with this matter directly. Bruce Banner looked at Director Nick sincerely, and said very seriously. However, Hulk is restrained, maybe you can't use Hulk's power. Director Nick frowned, and responded with a very ugly expression. No, I believe in Hulk's power. I also absolutely believe that I can stop this disaster. Bruce Banner said reassuringly, causing Director Nick to sigh uncontrollably, and finally nodded slightly. Okay, please be careful, if you are in danger, I will find someone to rescue you. Director Nick waved his hand, and Bruce Banner jumped out of the fighter plane without any hesitation, making the abomination who was preparing to act suddenly stop in his tracks. At the same time, a series of question marks appeared on Abomination's head, as if he hadn't expected it. The fact that the famous Hulk committed suicide would make others laugh out loud. After thinking about it, Abomination walked towards the place where Bruce fell, and before he had taken a few steps, a pair of big green hands suddenly stretched out from the big hole, and then, angry green eyes looked at him in front of him. The monster let out a roar. Ha ha, Hulk, you are here, now I am stronger than before. You are dead, I am the strongest god in this world. The abomination was not surprised at all, and directly gave the Hulk a cyclops, and blasted the Hulk about 3 or 4 meters away. During the attack, Abomination was also not slow in his methods. The flames burning on his body were thrown out by him again, hitting the Hulk in front of him back again and again, without even a chance to fight back. On the other side, Tang Tian watched the live broadcast unhurriedly, looking at the monster he had cultivated by himself. The smile in his eyes became more and more intense. Boss, it's almost enough. This monster has grown to the point where it is difficult to control. If we don't deal with it now, we will not be able to catch him. Deadpool reminded that he didn't want this matter to make too much trouble, otherwise the whole New York City would become extremely chaotic. Ding! Trigger the mission, kill the abomination, and reward the host with a chance to draw a lottery if the mission is successful. As soon as Deadpool finished speaking, the system reminded him, which did not exceed Tang Tian's expectations. Okay, I see, let's go and see now. Tang Tian put his hand on Deadpool's shoulder, and Deadpool didn't hesitate, and directly activated the teleportation ability, leading him to the area where the abomination and the Hulk were fighting. At this time, the surroundings were still filled with gunpowder smoke, but the Hulk was hated and stepped on the soles of his feet fiercely, and he stabbed him in the face with a sharp fist without hesitation. What's the matter, big guy? I'm undefeated, I'll wait quietly to die, right? Now you should know who is invincible. I said before that the power that belongs to God can only be me, and you can only be my stepping stone. The Hatred said with a cold face, and the fist was slightly forceful again, with the spikes of sparks piercing the twitch of the Hulk's whole body. When he wanted to resist, the Hatred made the Hulk calm down for a few seconds as soon as Cyclops passed by. Although the Hulk can continuously enhance his own strength through infinite anger, he was directly crushed when facing the absolute power of Hatred. Abhorrence, are you still asleep? A mere monster dares to say that he is invincible. While the Hatred was flying high, a discordant voice appeared behind him, and it was getting closer and closer to him. Turning his head, Abomination found Tang Tian and Deadpool standing not far away, and looked at him with playful eyes, as if he was watching a play, and he was not polite at all. It's you. For the sake of helping me, go away and don't let me see you again, otherwise, I will kill you directly. Hate wasn't too angry. Anyway, the other party was someone who helped him, so he couldn't kill Tang Tianxia easily. No need, I don't want you to let it go. After finally cultivating a monster like you, I naturally have to make good use of it. Now I am the hunter and you are the prey, so you are dead. Tang Tian said with a blank face, as if he was narrating something that could not be more normal than usual. No one can influence his attitude. At this moment, time seemed to stand still, and his disgusted eyes were full of disbelief, as if he hadn't thought that Tang Tian would dare to refuse his kindness. Very well, since you are looking for death. Then I won't let you regret it. Killing intent gushed out from the eyes of Hatred, and he was not going to be polite anymore. He wanted to use his strongest power to slap this annoying fly to death. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.